crossover. Oh, killer crossover.
Just crossover.
It just crossed him over. Absolutely.
Another victim to the crossovers. Cross him up and sit him down.
Time for the crossover with Matt, not Josh, Matt Jake.
Yes, very happy. Josh Hodson is on vacation.
You keep saying that Josh, you're so happy for Josh. Oh, he's on vacation. It makes me feel like you're not happy.
No, I am.
You just
I'm
keep
genuinely
saying it.
because
every time I mention Josh, you're like, I love Josh. Thank God he's on vacation.
because I'm happy for him. I'm trying to be a genuine human.
Of course
okay?
he does.
I'm trying to be a nice
that goes
guy.
unspoken.
I'm trying to be, and I'm very happy that he's on vacation. He is the hardest working person at 1620 zone, and he deserves it.
Hardest?
He's Jamaican. He's Jamaican. He has the most jobs.
He does have the most
By
jobs. He
far the
also
most jobs.
has he.
Oh,
Did
no.
he send you the ring for the Iowa
I saw
Western
his tweet.
Reavers?
He did not send it to me.
It is.
That's huge.
That thing is a Zamboni. It's insane. I texted that to him. I was like that.
Huge.
I was like, that is a. I called it a Zamboni. He goes, it's actually bigger in person. That's what he was trying to tell me.
It's crazy
So.
that Josh gets a ring.
It's so
Everybody
awesome. He gets a ring.
It's the one that you get, like if you're, for example, the Storm Chasers,
Yeah.
right? Team gets a ring. Then there's a mock ring that everybody else gets.
I don't even care. I just want to.
And
be
I have two of those. I have two of the Storm Chaser ones.
I haven't got nothing for nobody.
If you announce like the Players Era Classic and you announce like 4 Creighton basketball games this year with John Bishop and they end up getting Final Four rings, hypothetically, if they were to make it, would you want one? Would you throw your hat in the ring?
Yes.
Would you try and throw your hat in the ring to get one?
Of course, I'd be angling for that like months out. Yeah.
Would you see it like you're like, holy crap, this team might be like a 3 seed?
We want a Big East championship in baseball.
Yeah.
I did not get a ring, and I'm still mad.
Those
Put it on the internet that
You
I'm
should have
mad.
gotten that.
I should have got a ring.
You should have gotten that,
should have gotten a ring.
I
The
know.
radio crew should definitely get it.
Put it on the internet.
You don't get the real one, but you get the
Were
replica.
you the most or second most baseball games announced last year?
What do you mean? Wait,
Did you announce the most or second most baseball games last year for Creighton baseball?
most than who? Most of what?
Most of,
Did you- were
did
you
you
the
announce
most?
more than John?
Than John,
Is what
yeah,
I'm asking.
definitely,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Then you should.
For the
Yeah.
last 2 years.
If you are the most recognized voice of Creighton baseball, I feel like you deserve a ring for sure, undoubtedly. I've worn.
I called a Big East championship alone on a patio.
I listened to that.
in
I watched
Mason,
that.
Ohio.
You got a video.
Yeah,
I watched that. I was
Michael texted me.
watching.
He's like, "You actually do a nice job."
I was watching this. I've said multiple times you do a very good job.
I've heard that Michael said a nice thing about me today, but yet none of you are willing to reveal what nice
It
thing
was
was said.
early in the
You'd
show.
have
I
to
don't
go
remember that
find
far
it.
back.
That's ridiculous.
What? I don't remember that far back.
The nicest thing you said to me is how much you defend me.
Oh, I think-
No, Michael said he knew you. He thought you were good when you were badgering him about all the things that you thought he
when
was
I
doing
first
wrong.
met you in the
Yeah.
classroom, you walked in and immediately you were telling me I was trying to give tips, and immediately you were counting everything with what you thought, and I was like, "This guy's going to be good."
1,000,000%. I mean, you
tried to help,
definitely developed as a teacher.
Yep.
You definitely went through that
Yep.
process.
Yeah, I
I
went through
forgot
that.
that you did that.
I told you all the good stuff, and you just like said,
This guy would drive to Lincoln and listen to everybody's radio show, a bunch of crappy college radio shows, come back with notes for everybody.
So one thing about Michael, he listens to everything.
and tell everybody what they needed to do and then you would sit down and you would just let kids have their sport takes.
Yeah.
And then you would pick them apart analytically and numerically and be like, this is why you're wrong. And then you would tell them, we had kids who was like, I want to talk about this. And Michael would said, well, nobody cares about that. So don't talk about that. And then like, just move on. It was it was probably,
kids need to hear that.
it
was
is one
fun.
of my favorite classes I've ever taken. It wasn't really a class,
wasn't a
too.
class.
It was like an optional
"Yeah, it was
like
I was a
workshop that you
peer
could
guy,
go.
Yeah.
I went in
Professionals in residence."
every week I could go. It was him. It was
Didn't Dirk do it?
Andrew Ward. Well, yeah, Dirk did it, but
Well, what's that mean?
I mean, he showed up initially and then it just kind of,
Dirk.
yeah, he didn't show up as much as at the end. He showed up every week. There was one week though where you didn't show up.
I believe.
And I was
the
very
night-
mad.
The day I had was the day
I
that
don't drink beer anymore.
I was doing Big Red wrap ups. I think I did it on Tuesdays.
You didn't show up in a day.
And so
for
I
a
came
day,
in.
and I was pissed. I was like,
I must have been on the road.
It was like,
So
Michael's here.
Who-
No one.
You just had to
Sometimes
learn from Andrew.
Andrew Ward showed up every single time. Like it was very impressive how much but he was right there in Lincoln.
Andrew lives in Lincoln.
Yeah. I wrote
He's got nothing to do all day doing all the morning TV.
I wrote a column about Ben Simmons. like a feature column about Ben Simmons and him being a baby back. You know what? And
Move over, NBA.
And I sent it to Dirk, hoping that Dirk would critique it and whatever and all that stuff. And I never got my critiques back.
Dirk was very busy.
Oh no, I'm very well aware
very
of that.
Busy guy.
I'm very well aware of that. But I was just like, I always wanted to know how my Ben Simmons column looked according to Dirk, and I never got that satisfaction.
Why don't you read it to us now?
And full circle, I believe the Sixers are going to sign him as their 12th man.
Are they actually?
That's the rumor.
That's insane.
What do you know about NBA rumors?
Here's what
He's a 76ers fan.
This is why I know this, okay? This is why only reason because I am on a WhatsApp with a bunch of Philly fans, the Draft Jabronis it's called, and someone put it in the chat that maybe he's going to sign.
I think I still have. I think I still should have this Ben Simmons article that I wrote.
You should have. I save everything. I'm sure you do too. Is it on WordPress?
There is. So I look up Ben Simmons and a bunch of different files from 2022 come up.
The problem is that Google Drives didn't exist when I was in college. And they did exist, but they weren't as popularly used when I was in college and high school. So this stuff just went by the wayside. They were all Word documents and they were on previous computers and they're gone, which is great, to be completely honest.
Connor, I did my papers on a brother's word processor thing. That's what we did mine on. So
you still have them?
No.
Exactly.
But everything that's after like 19. So I started working here in 2004. Everything pretty much after 2004, I can probably find it.
Wow.
Do you
still have like daily?
Yeah, I have all my rundowns.
Your daily show rundowns.
Mm-hmm.
So if I picked a day,
yep,
you could go back.
pick one.
Yeah. Let's do. Well, I don't. Let's do
what is today?
February 18th.
No, for sure you're going to pick September 11th.
February 18th.
2001 before I get it.
2022.
What? No,
21.
Come on.
February what?
That was like 3 years ago.
Okay, what? You want one from I don't know. You pick.
I want like 2011 or 10. How about 10? Were you here in 10?
I wasn't willing to. Okay.
I was here from 2004 to 2014.
Oh, okay. Jeez.
So I left for 5 years and then came back.
So the K-State blowout was what, like September 20 something on the Thursday night? Give me the Friday after the K-State game.
So I wasn't here. We actually were flying to a wedding in Canada. We were going to a wedding. So we went to the game, my whole family, and then we drove to Kansas City, spent the night, and then flew out to Canada the next day.
Okay,
yeah.
So
but I remember that game very well.
Unfortunately, then my next request is going to be to the Monday after the Texas game.
Okay, so I just looked up. It'd be December 7th?
No, not that game. The Red Out Around the World game, 2010.
Just give me the date.
So that would be October 18th, 2010. I won October 18th, 2010. That had to have been a nightmare. Because that was personally one of the worst Nebraska games I've ever experienced.
It was only a 7-point game, though.
Oh, it was not a 7-point game.
That's what everybody's told me.
So that's the game that Haig picks up and runs it back.
Yes.
I was
so pissed.
Here's what's great about that game. I was actually doing a Nighthawks game at the exact same time, and I had the Nebraska game up, and Niles Paul drops the pass. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I went, oh, my God. And the person I was doing the game with looks at me and goes, nothing is happening on the field. It was Smitty.
Oh my God.
Smitty and I were doing the games together, and Smitty looks at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, he just dropped the pass.
Sorry, I'm watching another game while I'm watching
I
this game.
apologize. I'm watching another game.
That game sucked.
That game was brutal.
Terrible game. Do you have anything on your rundown?
I can't find anything on there. October 18th, 2010.
Yeah. So it would have been the Monday after.
I have an October 18th, 2017.
Well, that probably does the trick.
Let's see what this was.
2017 would have been really, really bad. That would have been after the Ohio State game. Complete nightmare.
So I had as my number one headline, the Big Ten. Remember teleconferences?
Yes, Big Ten teleconferences.
And this
were awesome.
I had notes from the teleconference from Mike Riley.
God, I miss teleconferences.
I had new Nebraska athletic director Bill Moose contract was signed that Friday.
Oh, exciting!
Wow,
yes.
Crab Creek Chronicles.
So we had that. We talked about Nebraska basketball being picked 13th in a poll of 28 conference beat writers.
This is in what year?
This was whatever you said.
17?
2017. 2017.
They ended up actually being good that year.
Yeah. And then what else did I have? Who was the guest? Oh, here's a breakdown. I had a breakdown of Diaco's defense.
Oh, yikes.
And
the best coach on campus?
Yes, exactly. So I did the average size of a 3-4 defense when he was at Notre Dame.
They were so small.
I did it at Notre Dame and showed the comparison of what Nebraska has.
Remember, they had the dude up front, the big nose tackle for Notre Dame. They were awesome.
They had Louis Nix.
Yeah.
Louis Nix. They also had Steven. They had Tuitt was on that defensive
Stephon
line.
Tuitt, yeah.
Yes. And at linebacker even, Prince Shimbo was 250. Ishaq Williams was 255.
Yeah.
So I did a breakdown of that comparing.
These dudes had like DeAndre Thomas, who was like 185 pounds in 2017.
So the average 2010 Notre Dame, the nose tackles were 6'1", 293. The defensive ends were 6'4", 280. The outside linebackers weighed 240. Inside linebackers weighed 237.
Yeah, that defense was so
Nebraska, and I compared it to Nebraska, much smaller.
Yes, much smaller.
Much smaller.
And this would have been
Stoltenberg was the biggest.
So October 18th would have been the Wednesday after the Ohio State blowout. So we're basically, Moose had just got hired.
Yep.
Basically, we're just on a death march at this point. So for Riley, sadly.
It's also the first day of NBA. And I wrote in first day of NBA marred by injury.
What was this?
2017.
2017.
Wouldn't this would have been, Kyrie was hurt, right? He was hurt to begin the year. No, that actually would have been
Haywood went down for Boston.
He did.
That's what happened. Yep. It says, ironically, the best player that was traded from Boston, Isaiah Thomas, is still coming back from injury. And then
I remember that game.
Hayward dislocated his ankle and fractured his tibia.
That game was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because Kyrie had gotten. Did he get traded yet? No, he was just signed.
Hayward.
Yeah, Hayward.
Yeah,
I thought you said Hayward.
He was there, but then
Gordon Hayward.
I remember that was like the first game of the year.
He's
That was a
running down
very
the
big
court,
deal.
right?
Yeah,
And
he goes up for a lob.
Yeah, goes up
so
for the
he
lob.
went and the thing. So they cut to him. So he falls down, and the initial cut on the camera, you see his ankle just completely twisted the wrong way.
I did not like
and
it.
I just think I don't think the camera crew knew at the time the severity. They just cut.
Right away. Yeah.
So they cut and it gets on national TV and everyone, and I forget who was on the call, but the announcer was like, "Oh my God."
It was like the Louisville one on the baseline.
Kevin Ware.
Yeah.
I've never seen that one.
So
I refuse to watch it.
Guests on the show were Jeff Sheldon, covering Nebraska volleyball for the Omaha World Herald. Stu Pospisil, talking some high school football. What else did I have on the show?
So what show would that have been?
This would have been the World Herald.
Oh.
This was the bottom line at the World Herald.
Oh, wow.
I was doing that then. Yep. I had Kirsten Bernthal Booth was a guest. I'm sorry, Kirsten. I know. I had her on. Hey, nobody else had her on. Scott Docterman.
Nice.
When he was with landof10.com.
Oh, Land of 10 with Hetty.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Landof10.com.
What a time.
And then Dirk Chatlin was my 1:00 guest, the columnist for the Omaha World Herald. What a horrible way to start the NBA season. I start off with Dirk, with Gordon Hayward getting hurt.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my 2023 Preakness breakdowns here, which I used. I'm now going through my drive and just looking at stuff.
By the way, Chris writes in on Twitter. He says, we need to get Michael to do a blog or a Facebook page with the rundowns and other old show content and info. It would be huge. Would you like to do a vintage Michael Severe Facebook page?
What is the thing that people do now? It's called again Substack.
Substack.
I could do a Substack.
You could do a blog. People would sign up for this
What's
blog.
today? Today is August the 10th, right?
10th, yeah.
Yep, 10th.
Yeah, do this day in Michael Severe history, 2013.
Let me see.
What were you doing?
Here. Let's go with this.
What were the camp storylines?
The camp storyline. That's a good point.
2013, I mean, Nebraska was they were just a couple weeks away from only beating Wyoming by 3.
God, that game. Oh, my God. That game. I thought that Smith quarterback guy was going to be great.
I know, me too.
I thought he was going to be great.
I have pulled up my 2023 Keys to the Game Nebraska versus Minnesota article.
2020 what?
2023 Keys to the Game.
Okay, so that would have been that was the opening.
The first game of the Matt Rhule era.
Disaster. What were the keys?
Contain his name was Brevin Span Ford, right?
Oh yeah, tight end.
Yeah. And so
giant tight end.
Contained. Do you think they contained him? Let's go take a look.
They did actually do a pretty good job.
I think they did a good job. Yeah, they did.
Be aggressive up front.
Oh, that's a good key.
They
was it do a pass that Jeff Sims drops And then
not
they
that
throw
one.
it to Jeff Sims or whatever.
That was awesome.
I did not say
That worked.
I did not say failed lateral that turns into a massive success.
Was
no.
it give up basically no drives or yards until the last drive of the game when the guy made that great catch? in
What
the
was that
corner
guy?
of the end zone?
Daniel something who made that insane catch against Hartzog?
Daniel Davey.
Daniel
No.
Daniel
Not Daniel Davey?
something Daniels.
Oh, Daniel.
Daniel Jackson.
Daniel Jackson.
I don't even know who that is.
He was the dude who caught that ball from Minnesota.
Dude, he had it.
Oh, I don't remember that.
That he
was an incredible
routed
catch.
routed Hartzog up.
So you got
Didn't he have 2 touchdowns in that game? Just one.
Daniel Jackson had 1
Yeah.
touchdown.
August 10th, 2015. And we had we can go open practice.
Oh,
okay?
this is good.
Open
This
practice.
is before the first game of Riley.
Tommy is number one
Oh, yeah. He
outside
definitely
of
was.
learning the nomenclature, toughest part of the system. Throwing with accuracy to his left. He had problems with his strong side. His deep ball was okay.
I was probably at this practice that day.
AJ Bush was getting better. You had Zach and Riker.
Yep.
Depth at wide receiver I talked about as part of the thing. I probably had handwritten notes. That's why I didn't put them in here.
Well, they had Stanley, Alonzo Moore.
Oh, 2014 was a great. I mean,
You said 15, right?
2015. So 2014 was the last year where you still had Quincy, right? Or Quincy left in 2013.
Quincy was gone after 2013.
2013.
The receivers that year would have been Westerkamp,
Yep.
Riley, Alonzo Moore. Everyone wanted to give the ball to Ethan Carter every time. And
I love Ethan
that
Carter.
was what, freshman year Stanley or sophomore year Stanley? Morgan.
2015. Yeah, freshman year, right?
Yeah.
The number one movie was
Oh.
Mission Impossible that weekend.
Nice.
Road Nation.
Things have not
Oh, that
changed
was a
much.
good one.
Rogue
That was
Nation.
with the
I enjoyed-
Syndicate.
That's when it started coming back.
Yeah. That's when they started that little run they went on where it was like all the agents that Cruz thought he had killed in the past ended up actually like having a crime syndicate. Pretty great movie.
Interview with Henry Cordes about Nebraska UNO's finances. How bad UNO's finances was.
Oh, it was a bad time.
Yeah, I was
They
doing
just
that.
moved to D1.
They were struggling.
Yeah.
That was an interview with him. Camp Chatter was about Ethan Carter, who was ranked.
I told you.
He was ranked number 10. Josh Banderas was ranked number 11.
This is like
Greg McMullen was ranked 9. This is the Omaha World Herald list.
Greg McMullen was soft.
We're talking about a guy that could set the edge, though. He could actually, because of his size.
He was big,
he was
yeah.
like 6'5",
Yeah.
270, something like that.
Yeah.
He could set the edge. Had ESPN Power Poll. The Jays were in Italy, and I had Rob Anderson on.
Whoa.
Yes.
Rob
Talking
from
about
Italy?
Yes. Milan, Venice, and Florence.
So this was their bounce back year. I mean, they would have been terrible the year before that, but they kind of bounced back. I think they went to the NIT that year. 15, 16.
Okay, I have found some things in my
Let me give the
Google
stat of the day.
Drive.
real
Go
quick from the
ahead.
day.
You do all
The
your
stat-
stuff,
Stat
and
of the
I'll-
day. 143 wide receivers in the NFL have caught a TD since the last time a Chiefs wide receiver had a receiving TD.
That's a great one.
It was week 14 of 2013.
That might still be true.
I don't think so. Don't think so. I do not think so. And the name of the segment when I had on Tom Chattel was "It's 5 o'clock somewhere."
If you don't count Tyreek Hill, that stat is still true.
Still
I
not
think.
true.
I have found in my files Michael Severe always putting family first.
It's a Michael Severe. It's a column about Michael.
This is a column that I wrote about Michael.
It's more of a
back-
profile, I guess.
It's very much a profile that I wrote about Michael back in 2020.
All right, come on.
It began.
Give me something.
The road to a successful broadcasting career is not a linear one. Unlike the leagues that sport broadcasters follow, everyone's career does not take the same road from high school into college and eventually the big leagues.
You should do an audio book.
Every broadcaster has a different story. Michael Severe, the radio host for 1620 KOZN, is no different. There you go. I don't think I put anything very interesting.
Is there any good
here.
stats
You
in
wrote
there?
something about my kids.
Yes,
And that kind of stuff, yeah.
Yes. I also did find a Sam McEwen reflection in which Sam spoke to us at a class, and I had to write a reflection about Sam's talk with us.
Reflections of...
In which I wrote how many? I think I wrote I don't know how to find out how many words you have in this article, but I wrote a very long reflection on Sam.
Hey, Connor, this is for you.
Okay.
August 29th, 2014.
Good one.
Birthdays.
Oh, yeah.
You love some birthdays.
I do
Here
love
you go.
birthdays.
No longer alive, Senator John McCain.
Yeah.
Rebecca De Mornay, who didn't love her back in the day. Liam Payne from One Direction.
Yeah.
Wow.
Bob Beeman, the long jump holding record.
Sure.
Carl Banks, New York Giants linebacker. Will Perdue.
Yeah.
And Leah Michelle was only 28.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what'd you say, August 29th?
It was August 29th, yes.
Let's see what the updated birthdays would have. Oh, wow. It was Michael Jackson.
Well,
how come you didn't have him on
because
there?
he was dead.
Well, I mean, he still gets a birthday.
No, I don't put the dead people
By the
on
way,
here.
well, I guess Liam hadn't died yet. Liam is now dead. Did you know that?
Yes, I'm saying, yeah. No, I did not know that.
Yeah.
And John McCain, I probably hadn't died yet either. So that's why he's on the list.
It's true.
Yes.
You have multiple people that are on that list who have died since.
Oh, look! I wrote. Oh my God! This day, I wrote this. This reminds me of when Bill Callahan wore beige to a press conference. President Obama wore a tan suit to a press conference on Thursday, which launched the Twitter hashtag tan suit.
Oh, what a great day that was.
How about that?
I remember when Obama wore the tan suit. That was a big controversy.
That was a big controversy.
Why was this a controversy?
Well, because things like that used to be controversies.
They don't wear tan suits as a president.
Not very presidential.
They said it was one of the worst things a president ever done.
Yeah.
What? It was also, by the way, Ice Bucket Challenge time. Donald Trump had been called out to do the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge at the time. And he did it with, believe it or not, Miss Universe and Miss USA together. They did the Ice Bucket Challenge.
Interesting.
He said, "Let's go, ladies."
Or the Ice Bucket Challenge.
It was awesome. It's back.
It's
back now.
Okay, so I have found my 2023 draft night notes. Okay, these were
Which sport?
Football for the NFL.
Okay.
I'll see how all these aged.
So here is my top 10, my predicted top 10 for the 2023 NFL draft. I predicted Bryce Young to go to Carolina.
He did. Did you predict him to be good?
I don't think I have any specific notes on.
Oh, you just predicted where they were getting drafted.
Just mock draft.
Just my top 10 mock draft. I do have a bunch of other notes here that one is very funny. I will read later.
I want the takes on like what you thought of these players.
Okay, so here's one that I read about the Texans. Just because you need a quarterback doesn't mean you need to draft one. D'Amico Ryan is a 6-year contract. You don't get more than one shot at QB typically. If you don't like the QB you're ahead of you, you shouldn't draft one. If he doesn't take defensive player and Will Anderson, an underrated story is that Houston has the 12th pick, so they can hypothetically take their QB if they feel so.
They traded up for that
both.
anyway. Yeah.
They ended up getting both Will Anderson and CJ Stroud.
That's right.
I did predict.
CJ Stroud and his weird legs.
I wrote this about the Colts. Desperate for a quarterback, Chris Ballard knows his job is on the line. He's been a good GM, but he knows that winning is all they did with luck. They need to trade up for a quarterback in this draft.
They did that, and that was horrible.
Yeah, and that ended up being Anthony Richardson,
who's terrible.
Who they just announced is going to be moved, either traded or cut.
Yeah, he's
that
going
was
to be
this morning.
I don't have any
moved out of the league.
I don't have any specific takes. I do say that Peter Skoronski is too small to play tackle.
He's got to play guard. Yeah, we all talked about it.
And then he ended up being a guard, and then he just signed a big contract extension. Oh, here's one. This is a good take by me. I go.
Give me a bad take.
They have been I predict the Falcons to take Bijan Robinson, number.
That's a good one.
7.
Nice, perfect.
From Atlanta.
I think that was the one they expected. Yeah, people expected that.
I went Stroud 3, Richardson 4, but I predicted the Raiders to take him, not the Colts. Jalen Carter 5. He ended up going 9. Christian Gonzalez 6 to the Lions. Tyree Wilson to Arizona. Miles Murphy. Bijan Robinson to the Falcons.
There's got to be something in there. It's like, I don't like this.
No, not really. I don't have like a hot take here on this thing that ended up being.
Okay.
I'm trying to find. No, I don't have any hot take other than Falcons should take Bijan Robinson.
No, you nailed it.
That's I did name it.
They most certainly did. Unfortunately,
no bad hot takes here for Matt McMaster. Maybe I was just on my stuff today.
I don't know. I'm sure there's something in there. There's a lot of words in there. You're just not telling us.
I was a terrible writer. This is awful, by the way. This note taking. This is terrible.
Go back and see how much you've come along.
It is so bad how I wrote those things. I mean, it sounds like a robot. That was terrible. I'm sorry. I just can't match Michael in terms of everything I have in here is way too recent.
Well, you're a recent kid. I mean, what do you want?
I'm a recent individual.
You're a recent person.
Do you have anything, Happer? I imagine your things would be.
Oh,
very,
in my
Yeah.
Google Sheets?
I imagine your things would be very entertaining.
Oh, I don't have any idea. Because I've only been doing this since 2020. A lot of it is just stats that I keep during a football season, things of that nature.
I did. So here's a mock draft from 2018.
Nice.
2018 mock draft. Okay. I had Cleveland with the first overall pick, taking Sam Darnold. Number 2, I had the Giants taking Saquon Barkley. Number 3, I had the Jets taking Baker Mayfield. I have Baker ranked as the 3rd best quarterback in the draft, fairly accurate and a plus arm.
Well, it's interesting how that all turned out. I mean, Baker ended up going number 1, Saquon 2, Darnold 3. Baker's had an interesting career, as has Darnold. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know who wins that at this point.
I had Josh Allen going 5 to Denver.
I remember my Josh Allen pre-draft takes, which is crazy now because I love Josh Allen so much. But I was like, hey, guys, if you're looking for a bust, I know who it is. It's Josh Allen. It has to be. He is the bustiest quarterback out of all of them.
Number 6, Indy, Quentin Nelson, my favorite player in the draft.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Denzel Ward. It's either Ward or Minka Fitzpatrick here to Chicago at 8.
He went, Ward went 4 to Cleveland. So
San Francisco, Roquan Smith. With Reuben Foster in legal trouble, this pick makes sense.
Yeah.
Josh Rosen. This is good.
Oh, man.
UCLA quarterback. I still think he might be the most ready to go for the league at the top picks.
I was a fan. I was a fan of Josh Rosen, too. He was the worst. He was terrible.
Oh, Vita. I have Vita going 13. He's a 2-down nose tackle, will be a great run stopper.
He went 12 and is a great run stopper.
Lamar Jackson sits 1 year and then takes over the Cards offense, getting drafted 15th by Arizona.
I mean, that would have been a very smart thing to do.
Baltimore, Calvin Ridley. Alabama, drops too many passes. Never liked him.
Nice. Well, you ended up going to your favorite team.
My favorite team?
Atlanta.
Oh, right. Nice. Good
Okay.
call. Who did I have the Saints taken? That was a horrible trade. The Saints moved up in that draft and took Marcus Davenport. Oh, I was so pissed.
They did.
I thought they were moving up to take Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson was falling.
Yeah.
So they were moving up for that. I had the Saints taking Dallas Goedert.
Okay, I have found some NFL draft scouting reports that I wrote. All right, here I'm just going to read the bad ones. Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah.
I'm out. He's big.
Any reason why?
He's fast, but I don't think he has a high ceiling. Truthfully, I watch this guy play, and I don't think that's him. I don't see him getting stronger. I don't see him being faster. And his weaknesses, according to scout reports, is his IQ. He has fast hands, but not a good counter. He's going to be a good player, but I am out on him being the number 1 pick.
I love how you're just like, I have no reason, but I'm out.
No, I said that. I just don't think he's got a high ceiling.
But why?
I think that he just kind of hit, like he was an NFL player already in the college is I think what my reasoning was. But I don't think he's going to get any better. Like he's already a grown man. Like he's already hit his peak is what I thought. I was wrong. All right. You wanted the bad ones.
2020, real quick, 2016. This was in the newspaper. St. Louis Rams, number 1 overall pick, Jared Goff. I think Goff is better than the other quarterbacks.
He did go
number 2,
1.
Philadelphia, Carson Wentz.
He did go number 2.
Number 3 would have been Laramie Tunsil, but of course we know what happened with Laramie Tunsil.
He had the gas mask.
Yep.
And it was ended up being Joey Bosa.
I had Dallas taking Jalen Ramsey. I had Jacksonville taking Miles Jack.
Dallas took Zeke. That was the
Zeke one.
Yes.
The one I had that I really liked in here was what was the one? Indianapolis. No, Jets. What was the other one? I know. Here's number 23, Minnesota, Laquan Treadwell. Struggles with separation, but he does go up and get it.
They did take him and he sucked.
Yep. I had Connor Cook going at the end of the first round.
Oh man, that guy sucked.
Still could, because that's when they're having a problem with Kaepernick, and so I had that. I would have
never been able to take Connor Cook high because of his performance against Nebraska in 2015.
Husker player predictions: Malik Collins being the best player for the Husker players in this draft.
Good take.
I have him as the 4th best interior defense lineman. I had Alex Lewis getting drafted somewhere in the 5th round. I had Vincent Valentine going somewhere in the 6th round. I had Andy Janovich as a possible going in the 7th round.
Jano.
All right, your Josh Rosen moment.
This is the last one. It's time to leave.
Yeah, it's time to leave.
Your Josh Rosen moment. My JJ McCarthy scouting report.
What you got?
9.
A ton of talent, a ton of athletic ability, good measurables. his film has shown flashes the ability to be a great quarterback. He can move outside the pocket. He's got a really good arm.
There are still some people who believe.
He's shown that he can make the right plays, and he's a winner.
It's not over.
He's got a ton of tools and a makeup to be a high-level quarterback in this league. It's all there, just not at a high enough level. Like, everything is okay, but nothing is great.
It's not over.
I wasn't completely off on
I would argue that it's not all
There's
there.
a lot of guys recently. Daniel Jones.
Yes, Connor.
That's
I
my
think
rebuttal.
most people would agree that it's not all
it's
there.
not all
Daniel
there.
Jones, Baker Mayfield. There have been a lot of guys gotten Malik Willis. They got thrown to the trash and have come back, and they're starting.
Apparently, he's winning the quarterback battle
That's what
right
I
now.
read.
Is what
too.
I read.
And
That
by the
he's
way,
currently
Vikings
winning.
fans are pissed.
They're very mad
They're
at Kyler.
So mad.
But
Kyler doesn't look at the playbook, so of course.
also, there was a feature on Tyler Shuck today being like the next Drew Brees in CBS Sports.
I don't know about all that, but I like him.
Congratulations. All right. Thanks, guys. This is fun. Appreciate you as always. All right. See ya. Middays Mac coming up next year on the 1620 Zone Radio Network.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You can never ask me about it later, and we're gonna hurt some people.
Whose car are we gonna take?
I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
That's an absolutely horse crap call.
Make room for Daddy. But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
Chicago is.
This is Middays with Matt on 1620 The Zone.
Middays with Matt live and rolling here on the 1620 The Zone Radio Network. Matt McMaster joined today by Jake Janicek.
Yes,
Double
sir.
J, you will be in the chair for Mr. Odson this week. It's going to be a fun one. J.O. on a well-deserved vacation. One second, Jake, I apologize. I forgot to set up my camera, and I look awful. Plug this in real quick. First off, I hate this computer. This computer, dude. I like today, it all of a sudden my camera started working today, and I had no idea it was working. I forgot to plug it in during our break there as we're all set up here. Well, I was making sure. First off,
Look great.
look at that Boston Celtics hat. I'm not going to be able to wear this hat in the next couple of months. That's the rule, Jake. A lot of people get upset at me for wearing other teams' hats when I don't root for them. My rule is this: if my team that I root for is not in season, I can wear other teams of that league's apparel. So the Bulls are currently not in season.
Yeah.
My rule is that all other NBA teams are in fair play if I own their hats. Now, I will say the National Basketball Association is probably the least hat league I have.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like how many people are really walking around with NBA hats?
Not many.
I don't think
I feel like it's
NBA isn't a
definitely
hat.
jersey.
That's a jersey league.
But
where
people
it's
wear
like
jerseys for other teams all the time. Like, how many times I've seen like fans of other teams wear like Vince Carter Raptor jerseys?
See, I am somebody who not famously, but very, very notably, baseball is probably on the lower list of sports that I have a passion for. But I undoubtedly have the most baseball hats out of all of the leagues that I have an A's hat. I have a Tigers hat. I have so many variations of a Cubs hat. I got I never wear it, but I do have a Milwaukee Brewers hat that I got from the 47 era. Do you ever do those mystery boxes? This is where I got this
I've
hat.
not done the mystery boxes, but I know you've talked about them. I've definitely been interested.
I have not done them. I guarantee you, because they used to be $17 for a hat.
Does a 47 do it? Or
This is 47. Now, there's different hats you can get. Like, if you wanted to get, like, fitted hats, you could do it. If you wanted to get, this is a, I forgot what this is called. I think it's one of their, well, it's obviously the one where it's like, look, it's got the strap back here, right? But I forget what they call it. I think it's like a classic or I think it's like a franchise hat or anything like that. I like the adjustable hats, obviously. Yeah. Hey, they actually lowered their price.
Oh,
shout out to 47. You can get a mystery non-fitted hat for $16.
That's not bad.
I might have to do that again. I haven't done one in a while. They now do shirts as well. I think they've always done shirts, but I've never picked them up. See, that's one thing. I don't have a lot of shirts of other teams. If I have a shirt, it's more than likely one of the pro teams or like Nebraska that I root for. I don't think I've ever really bought like a Baltimore Orioles shirt or anything like that. But anyway, this is why I'm wearing the Boston Celtics hat today. And I'm excited for football season because then when baseball season ends, then I can show off all of my hats that I have, because it's just like I feel like I'm betraying the Chicago Cubs, who hell of a series this weekend in Kansas City. Thanks to all the people who came out. You're welcome to the Kansas City Royals for potentially funding you an outfielder that you can buy in the offseason, which may not exist because of the lockout, but we'll just kind of skate right by that, as it was a fun little atmosphere the last couple of days at the K. The Cubs brought in two wins, catching up to the Brewers. I think they're 4 or 5 games back right now from the Brew Crew, who still have the best record in all of baseball. There were moments where I was like, God, good, happen a homer. Like, let's turn it around. Let's get him going. There were moments where I was like, all right, Zephyr John, looked pretty good. And I think he pitched in the 8th inning yesterday at that Sunday game. There were moments where I was like, all right, hey, the Cubs are still rolling, hitting bombs, having a good time. PCA, he's got a higher WAR than Shohei Ohtani, by the way. There's some, I don't know. There's a lot of social media people. They're trying to push PCA for MVP. It'd be very cool for the Cubs to have a most valuable player of the National League for the first time since 2016. But then there were moments where I was like, God, the Royals are bad.
They are.
The Royals are
It's
really
sad.
bad. It was a tough outing for the Kansas City Royals.
Caglione had
yesterday.
one good game though.
Yeah,
I'll
he did.
take it.
What he had a homer and a double on Saturday.
Yep, 4 for 4.
So yeah, good stuff. Fun little weekend for the Cubs in Kansas City. We're gonna have a fun show for you today. We have plenty to talk about. We are getting closer and closer and closer to the start of college football season, which means that we are getting closer and closer to the start of Husker football season. Little bit under a month away from kickoff versus Ohio at Memorial Stadium. I am not giving my record prediction today. I am not. There's still a lot of fall camp to be had. Unfortunate reality in football. Could be injuries that affect the season, right? That happen in training camp. Maybe not just for the Huskers, but also for the other teams Nebraska will be playing this season. So you have to kind of just monitor that, wait on that. So I'm not going to give you my record prediction today, but I am going to tell you where I am at, where I'm currently processing, what I think so far based on just what I know about Nebraska football, coupled into what do we know and what have we learned about opponents as we read and take in this material and read their reports and listen to their coaches talk at their podiums. I will give you a baseline of where I'm currently sitting when I have the outlook to Nebraska football season. I will say, as a little spoiler, that my floor and ceiling are much closer than many people's floor and ceilings, if that makes any sense. I think that some people might say, oh, they got a floor of 5-7 and maybe a ceiling of 9-3, right? I saw a joke in Happer's chat today that Nebraska's got a floor of 9-3 and a ceiling of 10-2. And, it goes to show you how much you don't know about this football team. I do think that, we know a good amount about this football team, but there's still more information to procure and to potentially get before we go ahead and say, this is what I think is going to happen. But I think that it really lies within the feet of, is Anthony Calandria the guy, or do they have a year like 23 where the surrounding parts of the team are pretty good, but the quarterback play is just kind of your consistent detriment to what you're doing? I say what you want about Dylan. I think that, they won games because of Dylan at points last year, right? I still harken back to that final drive against Northwestern. I mean, he looked like everything you thought he would be in that final drive. They had multiple 3rd and 7s that he came in clutch and converted. Had that one where he rolled right, found Lindenmeyer for the first down. Like, there were that throw he had to Barney, with the wind against Michigan State. When I remember, I was thinking about that Michigan State game. I haven't gone back and watched it, but I remember I was here at the Zone studio. I did it with Happer. We did the Big Red Overreaction together. And MSU, I think they took the lead. Where Aiden Childs just ran through everybody and scored a touchdown. And they either took the lead or they scored. They might have taken the lead, but I remember getting a text from Gary and being like, and Gary was like, hey, good luck with BROR. Good luck with that. And they're like, Nebraska seemed like they were poised to finally, to lose that game. And we're all a little nervous of like, how crazy is this Big Red Overreaction going to be, and how many people are going to be very pissed off that they won this insanely windy game versus the Michigan State Spartans, a team that, they were favored to beat that day. And then they turned it around and they figured it out, and they put some really big plays together. And I thought Dylan, statistically wasn't his great game. I think that had a lot to do with the elements, but his clutch performances, last season, definitely propelled them to beat a team like MSU, to beat Maryland. And all this to say that the quarterback position with Dylan most definitely could have been better. And his performance against Minnesota definitely ended up sinking that ship against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. But I don't think that the quarterback play was a detriment to the team last season. The detriment to the team last season was the offensive line play and just simply the unorganization of the defense as a whole against the run game, especially in the final couple games of the season. Or I look at this team this year and I say that, like, yeah, the D-line could be rough again. I do have a little bit more trust, I think, than others because I think the experience that they have throughout that entire defensive line, whether it be from Van Poppel and Lenhart are always the guys that we point to. But when Aries now got a full season of games under his belt, Jashir Winnington, he's played in the ACC. Anthony Jones, he's played everywhere across the country. They have a ton of experience and a system now where the focal point and the emphasis is going to be how can we put the guys on the D-line in the best possible position to help this team and for them to be successful. And I think that they have the right mindset that, well, the D-line, am I saying that the D-line is going to be a strength? Am I saying the D-line is going to be, what it was in 23 with Nash and Ty, and you're going to have that same renaissance that you had a couple of years ago? No, I'm not that confident, but I am confident in the fact that I don't think it's going to be because of those reasons. The new coaching, the new system, the emphasis on putting guys in the best positions to succeed. Also, just RVP now knows, all right, this is what it's like being the catalyst of a defensive line. Game in, game out, series in, series out, snap in, snap out. Lenhart knows that too. A lot of those guys were pretty limited behind T-Rob. They were pretty limited behind Nash Hutmaker. They were put in very specific roles and specific packages against very, specific circumstances to help them have those moments that got us very excited about their future at one point. Now I think that they have that experience of like, no, this isn't necessarily all about specifics. It's about, I got to be the guy, right? And so I think that experience with the coaching, I trust that it won't be as big of a detriment this season as well was last season. But I do get a little nervous about Calandria, man. I do get a little nervous if you go back and you look at some of his play against Boise State, especially in that conference championship game when that was UNLV's, that was their best competition, right? That they played last year and they ended up, losing those games and played pretty fine in the first time that they played Boise State. But it's one of those things where you go back and maybe some people would say, it's tough to, judge him off the tape versus Virginia when he was playing at Virginia. But, when he played SMU, when he played Notre Dame, when he played these high-level teams, who overall had more talent in totality than his team, he didn't get his best stuff. And that's a hard position to put a guy in. But Nebraska is going to be in those positions this year. Like, that is going to be a thing. Nebraska is going to play teams, that overall have more talent than them. At least 3, probably 4, you can put on that list. So I think that guy, when we talk about where I'm at, what's my ceiling, what's my floor, what do I think that this team can accomplish, it's really going to come down to a lot of like, can Ant be the guy? Can he take that next step? Can he do, we've had this conversation on the show multiple times, can he do and produce 80% of what he did at UNLV? Can he produce 90% of what he produced at UNLV? Can he limit those turnovers? He still had plenty of turnovers when he was playing in the Mountain West, and his turnovers are a big part as to why he's no longer playing in the ACC. Can he limit those? And this will be the second time that Matt Rhule and his staff, albeit a new staff with a new quarterbacks coach and new offensive coordinator, but this is the second time that he's going to bring in a quarterback that is a dual threat, can run, play for an ACC team who had some turnover problems, who had played a lot of college football too up until that point. And, can he fix this guy in a way that he didn't fix the other guy? And can Calandria stay healthy in a way that Sims wasn't able to stay healthy? And that really derailed the season. And, I think there is a part of me that worries about that potential possibility, which is why I continuously say this quarterback 2 battle, and who ends up being quarterback 2. It's not necessarily who ends up winning the battle as much as, is that guy ready to go? Is that guy ready to play? Is that guy, because there's a possibility that they're going to need him in some sort of capacity. I talked about this with Happert. I would, if Anthony Calandria played this season and ended up getting benched, I would be shocked. I'd be be like, wow, this really went away that maybe you didn't foresee coming. But the difference between 6 wins to 7 wins and 7 wins to 8 wins very well could come down to, did a Calandria interception happen? When did it happen? Where did it happen? How did the defense respond to that? That's what I did like about Tony White defenses. I don't have the number in front of me. I'm sure Severe probably has it. He'll text me. But I did love that there was an attitude that when there was a turnover from the offense, it's almost like the guys they embraced it. They're like, all right, we'll get it back. We'll get it back. We'll be fine, right? And so it's one of those things where when you're talking about these margins, right? The margins for Nebraska, especially when they play these teams that they are closer to in talent, when they play a team like Iowa that they are closer to in talent, when they play a team like Illinois, who they may be more talented than them. When they play those teams, what's it going to come down to? What are the margins? Oh, turnovers and special teams. And frankly, I mean, until last year where they got blown, they got their brakes blown off. With Iowa, it has come down to special teams and turnovers, right? And in particular, a turnover that happened on special teams, which did occur in Iowa City. And so we'll have a fun little dive deep more into that conversation a little bit later in the show. We'll also talk about the Hall of Fame. Roger Craig, incredible speech. Talk about the former Nebraska Cornhusker, one of 3 NFL players to rush for and receive 1,000 yards in one season. An incredible accomplishment. And we'll talk about a loaded 2027 Hall of Fame class that includes guys like Adrian Peterson, Ben Roethlisberger, Andrew Whitworth, Richard Sherman, Rob Gronkowski, Antonio Brown, along with the fact that Terrell Suggs and Frank Gore are still waiting to be enshrined one day in the NFL or in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We'll also get some updates as well. Currently, college football playoff executives are scheduled to meet virtually today to explore expansion. This is from Ross Ellinger. Leaders continue to focus on the 16 and 2014 models with growing momentum for a larger field. No decision is expected, and the debate is likely to continue into the fall. Dellinger continues. This was a tweet from him from an hour ago. ESPN, the rights holder of the playoff, is socializing with college football playoff leaders a 16-team format with 4 playing games for the final 4 spots into the field. So seeds 13 through 16 would play one another to then get into the final 12-team field. There is an expectation that will be discussed during today's meeting. There is a tweet from Heather Dinich of ESPN. She revealed that here's a quote from her, a tweet from her. And is there another CFP format option on the table? No guarantee. They will talk about it today. It's something floating before they've done a deep dive on 24, but it's not the first time. She has heard sources that they will probably discuss today during Monday a 20-team model for the college football playoff. We've heard a lot about 16. We've heard a lot about 24. Now Dinich reported earlier today that a 20-team model might potentially be on the table. So we'll discuss some more details as those are revealed as CFP executives meet today. We'll get some training camp updates from the NFL. Luther Burden, Jacoby Brissett, Carson Beck, J.J. McCarthy, Kyler Murray, a couple of names that we'll talk about today, along with the Bruce Feldman Freaks list from The Athletic. How many Nebraska Cornhuskers made it and how many freaks will Nebraska play this year? We'll talk about that, all that and more on a fun edition of Middays with Matt. We'll kick off the show with some Husker talk here on the 1620 Zone Radio Network.
Now, back to Middays with Matt on 1620 The Zone.
Couple of congratulations are in order. Roger Craig got inducted over the weekend into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The most, undoubtedly, the most accomplished non-lineman for Nebraska from the NFL or from college to the NFL. Like you said, finally, long time coming for Roger Craig to get inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Phenomenal speech as well. That was shown at Canton, Ohio. We'll talk about that speech and some more Hall of Fame stuff later in the show in terms of other things that were said at that enshrinement ceremony in Canton, along with a loaded 2027 class where I don't think it will happen, but you look at 5 guys on that new list of potential new inductees of the 2027 Hall of Fame. You say, wow, they could probably put all 5 of these guys in willy-nilly and nobody would really argue about it. I do think, though, eventually Frank Gore and Terrell Suggs have to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm not necessarily argumentative of those guys not getting in on the first ballot, but I do think eventually it's only right that those 2 guys are in. So we'll see how that shapes up. I feel like, this is going to be a pretty decent stretch of, having 5 guys going to the Hall of Fame year in and year out. But we'll talk about that later into the show. Other congratulations to be had to Damon Benning, former 1620 The Zone alum, who obviously was doing the morning show with Herdat, announced that he is the new director of player development for Nebraska football, taking over for Gus Felder, who was originally in that role. For those who know Damon, I think that that this is a role that is really, really, really good for him. His passion for football, his passion for Nebraska football, Nebraska athletics, and his passion for helping develop young people and young football players, and obviously most recently coaching for Westside, being a DC and DB. I've gotten to know Damon a pretty decent amount over the last couple of months and last year, and it's always been awesome to me, always been awesome to the show, to Middays with Matt, sharing jokes and challenging me on some takes that I might have. So I appreciate him. Appreciate the relationship we've been developing. I think that DB is absolutely going to kill it for Rhule in that role for Nebraska football. Matt Rhule did speak 25 minutes. Didn't say a whole lot. It is quite incredible to go back and listen to Rhule in year one and when he first got here to Nebraska, and then go ahead and listen to that 25 minutes that he gave on Saturday. Just the tone is very different, right? When he was first here at Nebraska, it was exciting. It was energetic. It was enthusiastic. It was, him kind of laying down, this is what we're about. This is what we need to be. This is what we're trying to do. Here are our goals. Here's how we're going to accomplish it. This is what I think. I remember, I don't think it was every week, but he would be very bullish on some players that Nebraska fans, frankly, were out on, right? He talked a lot about Jeff Sims as an NFL prospect, and people go, oh, okay, like maybe we got to do more research into this new quarterback for the Huskers. Oh, Bryce Ben, I remember he called Bryce Benhart, he was coming off of a difficult season from 2022, called Bryce Benhart, he's an NFL type player. People go, whoa, what? That's not what I saw the year before. And Bryce ended up developing into a very suitable tackle eventually for Nebraska football. And, I remember that it just seemed like there were headlines and very bullish statements and, very hard and fast opinions and hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're about. And this is where we need to go. Where we're 3 years down the line, we're 19-19. You're under 500, a very decent margin in Big Ten play. And the time for that and the time for that talk is kind of over a little bit, right? And I remember heading into year 3, and I still think we're in this era. I said, this is the beginning of the results era, right? These last 2 years where, all right, you come in to a difficult situation. You have to clean up a lot of the mess that was made from the administration that was before you. You have to use a lot of the players, right? Because back then in 23, you couldn't do nearly as much as you did now. Like, you couldn't be like Lane Kiffin and LSU where you go, all right, bring in all the donors, bring in all the money. We're completely flipping the roster. And not only are we getting new players, but we're getting very high quality players and immediately are going to put us in contention to, be in the college football playoff. LSU coming off of a terrible year where they fired their head coach in the middle of the season in the coaches poll is ranked 13th and potentially knocking on the door of making the college football playoff. You couldn't do that in 23. You couldn't do that with Matt Rhule, and specifically with Coach Rhule. He wasn't coming from a college football team, right? He couldn't bring Christian McCaffrey with him from the Carolina Panthers to Nebraska. He couldn't bring Brian Burns with him from, the Panthers to Nebraska. He didn't have that advantage. And so he had to come in 23 and had a lot of things to work against, had a lot of things to work through, had a lot of things that he needed to get done. And you kind of gave him a little bit of grace when they didn't make a bowl game, because even though that they didn't win a bowl game, 5 wins was the most wins they had in quite some time, after 3 wins and 4 wins and all that stuff with Frost / Mickey Joseph at that very end. And so then year 2, you go into, wow, he's got the 5-star quarterback. Wow, this team, should not have the QB issues they had the year before. Hey, they're bringing back Tony White. Hey, look at what they're returning on the defensive end. There was definitely some optimism and definitely some more optimism when they got off to that pretty good start, but then had a rough end of the season. But still, when you went into year 3, you beat Boston College, you won a bowl game, you went to the bowl game, you could say, wow, there is clear and obvious progress. There is a future to look forward to this team with Dylan Rhule and the potential of him getting better and so on and so forth. And heading into year 3 off of year 2, you're like, all right, this is where the results count. This is where it's all about the wins. It's all about the Saturdays. It's all about the W's. Even then, before you had what people have described as a lackluster year 3 under Matt Rhule, there still were people who were like, all right, cool. Like, I get all the words and I understand all that, but I'm more locked in on, all right, what are the results going to be? And the results have not been what people wanted, and they were not what people expected. And so now you've kind of had this shift where we went from having some very declarative statements, from very bold proclamations to this is what we're all about and this is who I am, to, we had 25 minutes, and the most notable thing is that Nebraska has gained 677 pounds of lean mass. That's the most notable thing that came out of that press conference, that they lost over 180 pounds of fat. That's where we're at. It was just kind of funny because I loved going to those press conferences when they first came to be, when he first got here, and they were fun, man. They were great. They were long. They were informative. You had some interesting moments where, Bill Belichick was in the building at one point, right? Remember that? And talking about how Bill would write everything up on the board and everyone's like, what the hell is going on? And Rhule made the joke, like he felt like he had the pressure of not going to the bathroom, right? Like that was fun. That was good. Like he would bring up Hassan Reddick like every like 4 questions. And you're like, hell yeah, he developed that guy. Like there was some legitimate excitement. And that 25-minute press conference that was very mundane, I was like, wow, okay. Things have changed. Things have changed. And you got to have results this year. And so I teased in our rundown. I'm not giving you my prediction today. I'm not telling you how many games I think Nebraska is going to win. I'm not telling you that, hey, this is what their record is going to be. But I do want to tell you where I'm at currently right now. And, this is, I guess, the more creative way to do what's Matt's floor and what's Matt's ceiling for Nebraska football. Or maybe it's not that creative at all. But here's where I'm at. I don't see them winning less than 6. I don't see them win, and I don't know how many people are going to say 5 and 7. I just don't see less than 6. And the reason why is I look at these 4 teams: Illinois, Maryland, Michigan State, Rutgers. And say what you want about last year and how they didn't take advantage of a schedule that broke really well for them, that, they didn't win the close game against Michigan. They couldn't pull it out against USC. They looked terrible against Iowa and Penn State. Like, say what you want about that year. One thing they did accomplish that they didn't really accomplish the years prior, where they pulled out close wins. They pulled out some really close wins. And I remember, I wasn't at this press conference, but there was a presser that Rhule talked about winning the close games and when they gave up a lead, right? When he had some of the guys from the Frost era, he talked about like, you got to slay that lion in your head. That was the line he used, slaying the lion in your head in terms of winning those close games. And to be honest, like they never really accomplished that with the holdovers from Frost to Rhule, which by the way, I don't put any blame on that any other than Scott Frost. That's a Frost problem. That wasn't a Rhule problem. Those guys unfortunately had some, what I like to describe as football PTSD. You know, they were just so used to being up and then everything, the walls collapsing in on them in the fourth quarter and then some terrible calamity happening, causing them to lose the game. Hell, there's a guy who made a whole podcast series about it. It was, I don't blame them for not being able to accomplish that with those guys, but now a lot of those guys are gone. And a lot of the guys that they were playing with last year, whether they be at different teams or whether they weren't old enough, they weren't on those Frost teams, right? And a vast majority of those guys were not there. And so I think in part of that, and because of that, and Rhule building up the importance of losing close games, because that has been the Achilles heel of Nebraska football now for the last decade and a half, that they were kind of calcified and hardened and able to win those close games. Won a very close game against Maryland, took game-winning drive, won a very close game against Michigan State, won a very close game against Northwestern, won a very close game against Cincinnati in the beginning of the season, where it took a massive play from a guy who was in the very end of the Scott Frost era, Malcolm Hartzog, to make that interception. And so I like, you want to say what you will about last season and not taking advantage of the schedule. The team and a lot of the guys who are back, the 83% retention rate that has been mentioned, they know how to win close games. They know how to kind of fight fire with fire. And when they're in some really precarious situations and some really tough situations, they proved last year that a lot of these guys who are going to play this year can find a way to get to the win. And so when I look at these four games between Illinois, Maryland, Michigan State, and Rutgers, I think that they all pose unique and different challenges to Nebraska. I think Maryland has a very talented quarterback and a super talented defensive line, but I think Nebraska kind of wins everywhere else, really, throughout that roster. And, you know, Maryland just very much could have a Mike Locksley problem at this point, and he's just gone. You look at Rutgers, you know, and once again, like, they bring back a lot of guys in the offensive line, and they got a guy in Antoine Raymond who's a stud running back, and they got a guy in KJ Duff who's another stud wide receiver. Like, those guys pose unique challenges to Nebraska. Once again, I think just Nebraska's a better team than Rutgers overall, top to bottom, even though they pose that unique challenge. You look at Illinois, and I'm 10 toes down on this. Like, I understand giving Brett Bielema the benefit of the doubt. I get it. The guy won 19 games at Illinois. Nobody's done that, okay, in the last 2 seasons. Nobody does that. But I think Iowa and Kirk Ferentz and everything that they have over there has proven they're immune in a way to losing a lot of talent, because they've lost plenty of talent in the past and they still win 8, 9, 10 games in a season. Bielema at Illinois actually hasn't proven that, because you look back and we always say last two seasons. Well, the reason why they don't say last 3 or last 4 is that in 2023, Illinois went 5-7. Well, why did they go 5-7? Well, they went 5-7 because they lost their cornerback, Tommy DeVito. They lost their corner, who's one of the best in the NFL right now, Devon Witherspoon. They lost Tre'Tavious Martin, who's also in the secondary. Lost Sidney Brown. He was drafted in the 3rd round by the Philadelphia Eagles. They lost Sidney Brown's brother, Chase Brown, who is now one of the more reputable and talked about running backs in the AFC North. They lost a ton of talent from that team from that year to next year. And they still had a lot of talent on those next coming teams, right? It was the first year of Altmaier. Johnny Newton was still there. Keith Randolph was also a really great defensive lineman. He didn't get drafted, but eventually signed with the Chicago Bears. Like, they lost a ton from 22 to 23. And you can make the argument they've lost just about the same from from last season to this season. They've lost a ton. Altmaier is one of the more underrated guys who have been acquired and stayed with the team for a long period of time in the transfer portal. He's gone. I'm not buying Caden Hauser, right? They lost like their entire front seven. They lost massive guys on the offensive line. They lost Hank Beatty, who was their stud wide receiver. Like they have the talent has just left. And I don't doubt that eventually Illinois will be able to redevelop that talent, right? And once again, with Bielema, be a contender in the Big Ten. But I think that this 26 team for Illinois is going to be very similar to the 23 team that they had, in which Nebraska that year in 23 went to Illinois on a Friday and beat them in Champaign, which is one of Matt Rhule's best wins of his tenure here at Nebraska. Michigan State, this is a transition year. This is how Fitz does it. This is not a Kurt Signetti turnaround. This is not a, hey, we're coming in. Also, too, Fitz, unfortunately for MSU, he ain't bringing a ton of guys from his former stop to go and help him turn this transition around quickly. So to me, because you weigh all of those factors I just gave you, I'd be shocked if they don't go at least 3-1 in those 4 games, right? So where does that put you? That puts you at 6-6. However, you have to look at the patterns of Nebraska football under Rhule. And I think that there are steps that you have to take, right, in incremental progress. And it'd be very bullish and bold to say that they're going to knock off multiple steps all in one season. And what I'm talking about is Matt Rhule has had an underdog loss every single season under Matt Rhule. They were a 1.5-point underdog against Michigan State in 23. They lost that game. They were a 1.5-point favorite against MSU. They lost that game. They were a 7.5-point favorite against UCLA in 24. They lost that game. They were a 9.5-point favorite against Illinois in 24. That was that rank versus rank game at Memorial Stadium. 9.5-point favorite. Lost that game. They were a 6.5-point favorite last year against Minnesota. Okay. They lost that game. Hard for me to fight that might happen again, right? This team could be, Matt Rhule's best team. He claims that, right? This is the best team that we've had, top to bottom, the most depth. At the same time, they haven't gone through a season where they just always handle business, where they always get things done. And so that's why when I think of people who go, well, they can win all their 9 games and then lose to the big 3, to me, I'm thinking, you know what? There's probably going to be a game that they shouldn't lose, or they should be in, or they might be favored in, or it's very close and they end up losing that, because that's been the pattern of Matt Rhule. And also, too, in order for you to get to 9, you would go, well, they have to beat a team as an underdog, right? They're going to be an underdog against Washington. They're probably going to be an underdog against Illinois, but I'm not necessarily worried about that game. They're going to be an underdog against Iowa. They're going to be an underdog against Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State. Matt Rhule has has won games as an underdog 3 times as the head coach of Nebraska. Illinois in 23, Purdue in 23, and UCLA in 2025. Do you want to know what the combined record of those 3 teams are? Illinois 23, Purdue 23, UCLA 25. You want to guess what the combined record is, Jake Janasek?
I mean, thinking about those teams those years definitely cannot be good. Like, definitely under 500 by...
Oh, God, yes.
Yes. Under 500, I'll say by like 10 games combined.
Yeah, you're close.
Close?
Those 3 teams that Nebraska has beaten while being an underdog have a combined record of 12-25.
Tough.
Matt Rhule's underdog wins has come from teams who had a 33% win percentage. Okay? So in order for them to get to 9, they're going to have to beat some very high-quality opponents as an underdog. They haven't done that. They just haven't accomplished that. I feel like these are all steps that you need to take at some point as a program, where you got to beat all the teams and not get upset at some point, and you have to beat an underdog team that's got a winning record, right? You have to do those steps. It's hard for me to proclaim they're going to do all of that all at once just because, and they're going to get to 9-3. And so that's why my floor would be 6-6 because I'm like, they've handled business and they won some close games last year against teams that they needed to and they should have. But at the same time, they haven't proved under Rhule that they can be an underdog and beat a team as an underdog with a winning record and make that big next step, right? And so that's why my floor right now is 6-6, but my ceiling's 8-4. There's not a whole lot of that's pretty close. I think you kind of know where this team is at. And I don't know if they could take those 2 big jumps in 1 year. It'd be great. But from what we've seen in the last 3 years, and the fact that you have some things that you thought would be at a high level that frankly heading into year 4 aren't as high a level. And I'm kind of referring to the player development. Like, they would need a lot of guys to take some pretty big steps, in order for them to accomplish that 9 wins, in order for them to beat those teams they need to beat. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of my whole breakdown. I'm like, I don't like the whole, though, like, people say, like, all right, tell me why Nebraska isn't going to have a good record, but, like, don't talk about the schedule. You can't talk about the schedule. If you tell me, like, if you go, hey, you have to give me an argument as to why Nebraska is going to only win 6 games or only win 5 games or why they're not going to be good, but you can't talk about the schedule. That's like me telling a prosecutor, hey, you have to convict this person of murder, but you're not allowed to say why. You're not allowed to bring up that their alibi doesn't check out. Right? That's what that is. You tell me that hey, we're going to do record predictions, but you can't talk about the schedule. All right. Yeah. You got to prosecute this guy and you got to convict this guy of murder, but you can't bring up that his alibi ain't there. What are we doing? That's how we predict schedules. You look at the teams that they're going to play, right? If you want to say, hey, tell me why Nebraska isn't going to be good, then that's a whole other different combo. When we're talking about records, of course I'm going to talk about the schedule. Of course we're going to lay that out. And I think that I'd be very stunned if they didn't go 3-1 against those 4 teams. One thing playing against them, though, Maryland, MSU, Rutgers, and Illinois, those 4 games, 3 of them are on the road. That's tough. Illinois on the road, Rutgers on the road, MSU on the road. I would feel much, dude, if you flip that and you had those 3 games at home and 1 game on the road out of those 4, I tell you, man, like, no reason they can't go 4-0 in that stop, and which maybe my floor and ceiling would go up a little bit. But that's kind of where I'm at. I think it'd be you'd have to take some pretty big steps to go 9-3. You have to put multiple steps together to do that. Maybe they do. I'd love to be wrong. We have plenty of text messages coming in the Prairie Flower Casino Zone hotline, 429511620. You want to get in on the conversation, we'll grab some of those text messages. We'll read them. We have some great comments in the YouTube chat. Hokey Skir's here. Sith is in here. Jimmy is in here. They're all having a great time. Join us on the Zone TV YouTube page. And don't forget to email us at the Equitable Bank Zone inbox. Equitable Bank, they take banking personally and always pick up on the first ring. And you can reach us at the Liquid Trucking Zone Twitter feed. All right, that was my ceiling. That was my floor. 6-6 is my floor. 8-4 is currently my ceiling. Where's your ceiling? Where is your floor? I want to hear from you. 429511620 or the Equitable Bank Zone inbox. Matt at 1620 the Zone. Matt at Matt McMedia on the Liquid Trucking Zone Twitter feed. Tell me, what are you thinking? What's your baseline? What's your hey, this is the highest they can go? And then maybe give me a take or two. We're gonna have some fun here on Middays with Matt, the 1620 the Zone Radio Network.
Now back to Middays with Matt on 1620 The Zone.
Hey, don't forget about the 1620 The Zone golf tournament, August 21st, Miracle Hill Golf Course. You can still sign up now at 1620thezone.com for some $400 total, $100 per person. It's a bang for your buck, guys. $100 gets you 18 holes of golf. It gets you food. It gets you drinks. It gets you prizes. It gets you an opportunity to win $10,000 on the par threes if you hit a hole in one. We'll also have some prizes too throughout the entire course, just not the par threes, but other prizes throughout the entire course. So we'll have a great time there. I'll be broadcasting there middays with Matt. Happer and Schaefer will be there in the morning. Then we're going to have a after party at the Phoenix with unsportsmanlike conduct, where when you sign up and you pay your $400 for your foursome, you get VIP access to that after party at the Phoenix. So it's going to be an absolute blast. 1620zone.com. Our par three $10,000 contest is brought to you by Langfeld Overhead Doors, and the entire tournament brought to you by Cutwater and T-Box Omaha. Know your game. We are going through some of people's floor and ceilings for Nebraska's football season. I kind of broke down pretty in depth how I feel about Nebraska's floor heading into next year. I think the floor is 6-6. I think they proved last year that they can win close games against teams that they are equal to in talent or above in talent. And they did that throughout the entirety of last year. And with their retention rate and the emphasis that Rhule put on being able to come out of the fire and win close games, because of the fact that that has been the Achilles heel of Nebraska football for quite a while now. I think that a lot of these guys on the roster, they've been kind of raised in the, all right, we gotta close it out when we have the opportunity. And they did that last year against Maryland, against Michigan State, against Northwestern. So I think that those 4-game stretch that they'll play, not stretch, but the 4 games they'll play against Rutgers, Maryland, Illinois, and Michigan State, those are teams that they will either be more talented than overall or equal to in talent. That I think that I would be shocked if they don't go 3-1. It's just, Matt Rhule has only won 3 games as a true underdog outright at his time during being the head coach of Nebraska. Those 3 teams that he beat have a combined record of 12-25. Right? You're gonna play some pretty good teams that you're gonna have. They're gonna have an opportunity to beat Washington. They're gonna have an opportunity to beat Illinois, or obviously beat Illinois, but also Iowa too. Like this isn't Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State, who have guys all over that Bruce Feldman freak list. Who are they're just going to be able to overpower you. Which unfortunately, that's kind of what we think in some of these games when they play the big 3 of the Big Ten. I definitely think, though, that it would be really, really unfortunate if for the second time in Matt Rhule's tenure at Nebraska that a national champion comes into Memorial Stadium and really beats you down. It already happened with Michigan and J.J. McCarthy in 2023. That team ended up winning the national championship. Let's see what that game is like versus Indiana, where, they won the national championship from the year prior and have a very, very good team once again. I think with those Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State games, like I don't mean to seem like I'm waving the white flag, but it definitely would be, even if they don't win those games, it'd be great to have a repeat in 24 if you did at Ohio State at the Shoe, where you're like, holy crap, they could end up doing this, right? And that's kind of where Nebraska's at, where, you definitely cannot expect them to win those games between Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana. But I don't think it's that big of an ask for you to be like, hey, can you get this to the third quarter? And we're thinking, hey, could they actually do that? I don't think that it's that big of an ask from where you are at this point in year 4 of the Matt Rhule era. Let's go through. I asked some floor and ceiling questions. Like I said, my floor is 6-6. Right now, my ceiling is 8-4, just based off the fact that Nebraska, under Matt Rhule, hasn't had too many of those, big, holy crap wins. John goes 5-7 is his floor, and his ceiling is 7-5. Ooh. Yeah, I think that's really you're really selling on Calandria there. I think you're really selling on Matt Rhule's ability to develop players. I think you're really selling on the improvements that the coaching staff is going to make. I think if you're saying the best that this team can do is simply just, beat Illinois, because that would probably be their 7th win if we're doing like a talent ranking. If you're saying that the best they can do is beat an Illinois team that has lost a lot of talent from last year to this year, I think that you're selling on the idea that this team could take some pretty big steps. J. Todd goes 5-7, 8-4. See, I think that's probably would be our number one answer. I think most people would pull back from saying, oh, they're going to beat every single team except for the 3 teams that could be playing in the college football playoff. Because once again, you'd have to do some things you haven't done before, right? Like you'd have to beat Iowa. That Washington very well could be ranked at Memorial Stadium for that game. They haven't, I don't have to reiterate when the last time that Nebraska in football beat a ranked team, right? You would have to do things that you haven't done in quite some time in order to accomplish 9-3. But I think that if you put it 8, I think 8-4 is doable. I think they can get to 8 wins. I think they can, beat Iowa. I do think that maybe they finally have some little bit of magic and they pull out a big win against Washington. I do think that they can beat Illinois. I don't know if my ceiling will be my prediction, but I think that is plausible, and that's what a ceiling is, a positive, plausible outcome. But I think also, too, if you want to say, hey, the quarterback could end up not being the guy once again for this team, and maybe the D-line doesn't take the steps they need to, and maybe the offensive line is a little bit more overhyped than we think, even though that the reports are coming in that they're playing really well right now in fall camp. Like, I think the base answer and probably the most popular answer would be 5-7, 8-4. We had some ceilings here, floors and ceilings here in the YouTube chat. Hokey Skirt does right. He goes, Matt, can you back squat 700 pounds? Absolutely not. What type of question is that? Sith goes, buckle up for a 5-7 season. Take care of your mental health. Yeah, that'd be tough. Hokey, though, still calling me a Maryland homer. I'm not a Maryland homer. I just really like Malik Washington. Hokey Skirt goes, floor 7-5, ceiling 10-2.
Nuts.
Yeah, that's drinking the Kool-Aid. I mean, that's what that is. I mean, to say at the bare minimum they go 4-0 against those teams, like I said, like they did a good job of winning those close games. It still did not make you immune to the Minnesota game, right? Like Nebraska, I've already detailed this. Every single season under Matt Rhule, they have lost to somebody that they have been a favorite to. Now, that's not that happens to everybody, right? Like that happens to teams across college football. It would just be nice if it didn't happen once for Nebraska, if you just took care of the business you needed to take care of. But to say that is the floor, I think is very bullish on this team. We continue to scroll down here. Jimmy goes, floor 0-12, ceiling 12-0. I don't know about that. I have not put the thought into my mind of what if they lose one of the first 3 games of the season. I haven't even thought of that. I don't think it's going to happen.
I hope not. That'd be so bad.
That'd be terrible. And can you imagine if they had to play a concert after losing to North Dakota? That would be that'd be terrible.
Good content for the show.
That'd be oof. Oof. Sith goes 5-7, 7-5. Jimmy gave us an actual answer. 3-9, 7-5. Yeah, I don't think
so. 0-9 Big Ten play, basically.
3-9 is on the table at all. Sith goes, Rutgers is easily the lay and egg game this year. You know what, Sith? I think you might be on it. Because I do actually think that there's a world where Maryland could be good, that they could actually have a pretty surprising year because they got some talent in some really important spots on that team. And they do have some continuity. Now, granted, we always have the conversation, how much of an advantage is it to return all these guys from a 4-8 team? I think that's a valid argument that I often make. But I really like the quarterback they got. And they got some interesting pieces on that offensive line. And then I think their D-line it's one of the more talented defensive lines in the Big Ten. It's 5th on EA EA's college football ratings, right? They are the 5th highest rated defensive line in the Big Ten, according to that video game, which I think actually is a pretty good source to say, like, hey, how do we think individual talent plays into these rosters? Maryland has a lot of individual talent here on their offensive or their defensive line, but Sith goes Rutgers is easily the lay in that game this year. I think also too, like if the D line ends up being not taking the step that they need to take in order to be a Big Ten serviceable, average to above average defensive line, like if they don't take those steps, Rutgers rather, would be that team to take advantage of it. And also too, it comes later in the schedule where if Nebraska has, if they had a rough lead up to, and we had this conversation as to why I think the Illinois game is so important, because Rutgers is the second game in November. And you look at the 4 games that are before Rutgers, versus Indiana, at Oregon, versus Washington, at Illinois. There is a world where you are going 0-4 in those games. Then you have to go on the road to Piscataway, New Jersey, to play Rutgers. And you're already coming off of a road trip the week before where you had to go to Champaign, Illinois. Like, that's why I've said that I think the Illinois game is so important, because if you're going into that Rutgers game on the road 0-4 and you're going to play a Rutgers team that has the capability to punish you and where you are could potentially be weakest, I agree with Sith that could be the lay-in egg game. That could for sure be a lay-in egg game. And Sith goes, if it's a 4-game losing streak going into Rutgers, and I have zero doubt they will lose to Rutgers. That's why I've said that Washington, Illinois stretch, it's like you got to pick up one of those games to have some momentum heading into that game on the road. Jimmy goes, Maryland has even worse coaching. Yeah, that's pretty bad. That's what I said. I think Maryland's super talented, but like they could just have a coaching. They could just straight up just Mike Locksley is not the guy. John goes, if your ceiling is more than 7 wins and you are expecting an awful lot out of ifs to come true, Rhule has shown no evidence that will happen. John, that's what drinking the Kool-Aid is. It's just thinking all the ifs are gonna happen. That all the progress that you saw from players, whether it be slight or big, are just going to continue to expand upon it. And honestly, we talk about this with Tim Verghese all the time. Progression is not linear. Some guys take a different path to get to eventually where they are, and some guys just never reach it. Dan goes, this is a good one. Dan goes, floor 6-6, ceiling 6-6. That's bold. That bold. Jesse goes, Matt Rhule said this year 1 feels like year 2, and this year 2 feels like year 3. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of discussions to be had in terms of let me tell you this, they were very confident in last year's team. They were really confident in last year's team, and they thought they had something. And it definitely was disappointment, not just in the fan base and from like media, but just throughout the entirety of that football program. And here's the thing, that because they showed that to you when they decided to get rid of a lot of coaches, to get rid of the defensive coordinator, to get rid of the defensive line, to bring in a new system, to bring in a lot of different pieces, to get rid of the offensive line, to get rid of the quarterback. Sip got, grilled for asking if it's a reset, but they're doing a lot of different things this year. That's for sure. All right, let's take a break this year. Odd news coming up next, and then we'll continue to talk a little Husker football at the 12 o'clock hour and give you some NFL training camp updates here on Middays with Matt.
And now we've reached the point in the show where Josh Odson reads the peculiar, the bizarre, the comical, the odd news with Odd Son. Odd news, Odd Son. See what we did there? The odd news with Oddson.
It's not the odd news with Josh Odson. It's the odd news with Jake Janisek
sir.
this entire week. Jake, what do we got?
So Porter Airlines flight in Canada canceled after child refuses to sit down and buckle up.
That's tough.
So a Porter Airlines flight in Canada was canceled last week after a young child refused to sit down and buckle up, forcing the plane back to the terminal and delaying it past the airport's runway closure. The Toronto-based airline said Sunday that parent and crew repeatedly tried unsuccessfully to secure the child in the seat when returning the plane to the terminal of Victoria International Airport in British Columbia, and they had to remove the parent and child. Porter said removing the parent and child and their baggage delayed the Toronto-bound flight so much that it went past 12:30 a.m. runway closure.
Oh, no! Are you kidding?
Yep.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
I would flip. I would flip my crap. I would lose it. Holy Lord. Have you ever had a bad encounter with a baby on a plane?
I mean, just
Poll
hearing
question.
it crying.
Poll question. Have you
Yeah.
ever had a bad encounter with a baby on a plane? Yes or no? At Middays with Matt. We'll put that up. I have not. Have you?
I just only with a baby crying. That's though.
I've never even had a baby crying on my plane. I've
good for
been
you.
lucky, dude. I had a run of luck with flights. I got to knock on wood now. I had a run of luck with flights in terms of like not being canceled, not being delayed, nothing going wrong for a good 5 years where it's like nothing really went awry. And then about a year and a half ago, it was a pretty bad delay and ended up getting canceled. And it was like I almost didn't get back to Omaha on time. That was the worst. But I went on a pretty good run of being lucky with that stuff. I don't know what I would do if the child couldn't buckle up. That's now why I can't get to my family. That's absolutely ridiculous. What's the second odd news story?
So what we got, deputies had to help lasso an escaped 1,500-pound bull in Alabama.
Okay.
Police and sheriff's deputies in Alabama traded in traffic stops for rodeo duty when they were called to lasso that 1,500-pound bull. The Pickens County Sheriff's Office said on social media that deputies responded alongside Carrollton Police Department officers when the bull was spotted wandering near a neighborhood. The Longhorn led its pursuers to chase down Highway 17 and back to the neighborhood where it was originally spotted. And they showed a video of the cops trying to get the bull. And this was a quote. We all learned one thing. We're probably better off patrolling the county than trying to make a living on a rodeo circuit.
Yeah.
We'll hang our Cowboys hat and boots back up at least until the next bull decides to go out and sightsee.
That is an irrational fear that I would live in a city that has a zoo, which I currently live in, but then that zoo would lose like a silverback gorilla, or they would lose a very dangerous animal or apex predator. And not only would my fear just be like, oh, a zebra's on the highway. My fear would be like having a close encounter with that, just seeing a gorilla walk. Can you imagine? I would flip out if just a gorilla right here walked across Dodge. If it just was walking right here, just on all fours, just stomping through, I would lose it. I would freak out. I would never want that. It's an irrational fear.
Yes.
Okay. But that is absolutely not. Honestly, I go to the zoo a lot, but I now stay away from some exhibits because I don't dance with the alligators. I don't like them.
Oh,
I don't, everyone says incredible things about Kingdom of the Night. Not for your guy. Not for me. I'll stick in the Desert Dome. That's exactly what I'll do. All right. We'll stick to football because that's what we do here on Middays with Matt. NFL training camp updates and some more Husker football talk coming up next here on Middays with Matt.
Now back to Middays with Matt on 1620 The Zone.
All right, we have a lot to get done in this segment. Number one, I just got an email that is absolutely remarkable that I have to get out there because listen, spots are going fast for the 1620 The Zone golf tournament. Okay, go to 1620thezone.com. Sign up. I'm telling you, you want to get in on this. You don't want to miss out. We've had a lot of signups come in over the last couple of days, so you want to get in 1620thezone.com. $400 for a foursome, right? It's $100 per player, so $100 gets you 18 holes of golf at Miracle Hill Golf Course, along with free drink. Drink included, food included, right? Prizes included, VIP access to our after party at the Phoenix, live broadcast. Happer and Schaefer, Middays with Matt will be there. USC will be at the Phoenix. You get a whole lot of fun for $100 per person, $400 in total for your foursome at the 1620 Zone Golf Tournament. But I just got this email, guys. All right. You got to listen to some of the prizes we're giving out, right? You come in first place in the first flight of this golf tournament. Each of your members, you're getting $100. All right. You're getting a $100 Visa gift card. If you come in second place, third place, you're going to get some prizes. If you come in first place on the second flight, we're going to give you in each of your teammates $100 Visa gift card. All right. You're going to get some prizes. You're going to be able to win your money back, right, from playing in this golf tournament. And then listen to some of these hole prizes. Every hole is going to have a prize. You can get the Bert Kreischer tickets. You can get Creighton basketball tickets. You can get Storm Chasers tickets. We're giving out gift cards to places like Scory's Coffee, to places like Les Peep, to places like Early Bird. There's a Roku streaming stick that you can win. You can get a Design for custom cornhole board. All right. So sign up, 1620thezone.com, $400 for a foursome. It's going to be a ton of fun. You can hang out with us, hang out with people who listen to The Zone, and put yourself in an opportunity to win some awesome prizes. Hey, if you're a ringer, if you're just an awesome golfer, look at all the things that you can win. You can get tickets to all the great places and gift cards to all the awesome places to eat across Omaha. So sign up now, 1620thezone.com for the 1620 Zone Golf Tournament. It's brought to you by Cutwater and our friends at T-Box Omaha. All right. So we have some a couple of comments here after our odd news story. I said that one of my irrational fears is seeing an animal that's escaped in a zoo just on the street. All right. That's one of my biggest fears. It probably will never happen in my life. Knock on wood. PC goes, you never called 911 saying there's a big gorilla on the corner of 13th Street? No, I haven't, PC. B-Dog goes, a mountain lion got loose, and my mom encountered it trying to leave work. She opened the door to get back in the building so quick. That would be scary as hell.
I don't want to mess with a lion.
Mountain lion would be, well, it's not, mountain lions are different than, African lions, but that would be definitely pretty high up in the power ranking of animals I wouldn't want to F with if I were to see them on the street. I also will say that there are some people now giving their, nightmarish scenarios on a plane and everything after we read the story about a whole flight having to deboard because some baby couldn't get strapped in to a seat, which John then texted us. He goes, wait, how freaking strong was this kid? This is a great question. Maybe Nebraska should put in some work here. Maybe recruit that kid to play for them one day. Yeah. We got another comment here on the Zone TV YouTube page that that our friend Nobody went ahead and goes, the parents just let the baby scream its head off the entire trip from Vegas to Grand Island, which sounds like an absolute nightmare. I'm saying I've never had a bad baby encounter on a plane. Good. And I don't want to. I don't think that's anything I want to wish on anybody, even though there are now significantly more babies in my life, because all of my friends are either having kids or my cousins are having kids or my brother just had a kid. The exponential, the growth of the amount of babies that used to be in my life 3 years ago to how many babies are now in my life has gone up about 1,000%. It's absolutely ridiculous. So that's funny. I appreciate everybody participating when we do that fun odd news story. Let's talk about some other fun stories that are happening across football. NFL training camp is going on. We have some training camp updates. Should have I'll make a bump or something that we can do. Jake, I went. You can look at my YouTube history. I went and I looked up all the NFL themes yesterday, and I just played them off of YouTube on my walk. I was just listening to the NFL theme songs.
What's your favorite one?
Oh God,
there's a lot of good ones.
Probably the NBC.
NBC one is good.
Well, no, that'd be ESPN. Isn't it?
No, that's Monday night. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Monday Night Football is my favorite theme. The that's a great one. What's the
That's CBS.
I think that's CBS or NBC. See, Joey Warcola is freaking out right now because he knows all of these off the top of his head. Anyway, training camp updates for you Bears fans out there. I got you. Don't worry. Luther Burden, the star wide receiver out of Missouri, who had an incredible end of last season, that San Francisco 49ers game. That game is a classic, by the way, that gets forgotten. That absolute shootout that happened at primetime television when the Bears went on the road to San Francisco, nearly beat the 49ers in an absolute shootout. One of the better primetime games we've seen from an offensive perspective since that Kansas City LA Rams game. He got hurt at training camp, hurt his hamstring. He's out for the preseason, but Luther Burden expected to be back for the start of the regular season. Important news for fantasy football owners out there that he will be back for the regular season. And on top of that, important news for dynasty fantasy football owners, because Luther Burden is a guy that's going very high in dynasty fantasy football if he's not already a keeper. Here's the thing, though. I'm not necessarily worried about, this is my favorite team, but I think this is an educational thing or something I've been lucky enough to learn from being around people who are actual NFL players. John Yurkovich is a guy that I worked with back in Chicago, played for the Green Bay Packers and the Jacksonville Jaguars in his career. Great nose tackle. And Yerk, would often discuss that injuries like this that keep you out of the preseason. Yes, you're happy it's not a torn ACL, right? You're happy it's not a torn patellar tendon. You're happy it's not an Achilles injury, right? You're fortunate that it's not something that is going to keep you out for a significant part of the regular season. So you hear, Luther Burden, he had a hamstring, problem. He'll be fine for the regular season. You take a bit of a deep breath. But something that I learned from Yerk, who is like I said, long-time NFL nose tackle, is that he describes it as losing your legs in training camp. He's like, you want to go out there, you want to practice hard, you want to be in your pads, you want to get your hits in, and you lose your legs. You just lose them. You just get toast. You're out. Your body's in pain because you haven't taken hits, right? In 7 months. You haven't taken that punishment in quite some time, right? Especially if you got knocked out at the beginning, before the playoffs, right? Some of these guys haven't taken hits in 8 months. So you go into this training camp and he calls it losing your legs. And then you get your legs back, right? And when you get your legs back and you kind of you regain that strength and your body gets back used to taking hits at the NFL level, when you get your legs back, it does kind of protect you from having some lingering issues, right, throughout the regular season. And it's important to go through a tough training camp. It's important to take those hits. It's important to get your body ready, so you don't have those consistent lingering injuries that we often see derail entire seasons for not only just NFL players, but some NFL teams. And so when I see a guy like Luther Burden, who is going to be a massive part of, the Bears offense this season and is expected to be at least the wide receiver 2, maybe even wide receiver 1 for the Chicago Bears. When I see that he's going to be limited in training camp and, he's going to miss a lot of these preseason games and his first, live football hit is going to happen at in a regular season game, I get a little worried. I'm a little worried that he could be a prime candidate to potentially be a guy that has a lot of soft tissue things going on in his career this season for the Bears, where they're going to need him desperately. Where I did see a tweet. I try not to get mad on Twitter anymore, Jake Janicek. Okay.
What made you mad?
There was an old Twitter account that I had that has since been shut down I never said anything like terrible on her or anything, but I often got into fights with people on that Twitter account, and it was bad for me. It was bad. It was bad for my mental health, bad for my noggin. I was always walking around with anger. I was always thinking about I got into a lot of fights with Sox fans. So I declared myself, I'm no longer going to get into like knockout, drag out fights on Twitter. It's just not good for me. Doesn't look good on me. Nobody wins. All right.
Yeah.
When you just get into these massive fights on Twitter with people that you've never talked to in real life, nobody wins. That's what I believe. I picked a fight on Twitter, though. I picked a fight on Twitter. I picked it, and the guy didn't come back, and it's probably fortunate for everybody. But there was somebody. Here's the thing. Just because you write a lot of words on Twitter doesn't make an analysis. Okay. And someone was trying to say that the Bears don't have any depth in their weapons, and they didn't even bring up Golston Loveland. And then they brought up the fact that Cole Kmet has only received, his highest receiving yards in his career as a tight end is 717. I don't know if you don't know football. 720 receiving yards for a tight end is phenomenal. Okay, especially with what other things that Cole Kmet has to do on that roster in terms of blocking and pass protection and run block. Like it's some people just pissed me off. And I almost got back to it. I almost relapsed from Twitter fights. Jimmy goes, Reddit is even worse. I spent a good 3 minutes on Reddit, and I immediately said, you know what? Not for me.
It's bad.
I'm not a Reddit guy. There are some people who their entire life is on Reddit. And I will say this, some of the juiciest info that you can find, not only just on like pro teams, but even college teams, for whatever reason, are just on Reddit threads. And it's crazy. I had a Reddit thread made about me. I kind of fired me up. Kind of liked it. So that's Luther Burden. He's out for a hamstring injury. Vikings fans, close your ears. JJ McCarthy is winning the job right now for the Minnesota Vikings. All reports indicate that, first off, neither of the guys are playing great. The last Minnesota Viking training camp update from their previous practice was that Kyler Murray threw 2 interceptions while J.J. McCarthy struggled in the red zone, commanding the offense. Neither of the guys have taken the job just outright and haven't just grabbed it, even though it seems like it's very much up for grabs. But at this point, Kyler Murray it's taking him a while to get used to this Kevin O'Connell offense. And it might be we're back to the point where the biggest problem, I still find it incredible that the Minnesota Vikings were as competitive as a team that they were last year with just bad of quarterback play as they had. But currently right now, it seems like JJ is very slowly inching towards getting the starting job, which would be an upset, would be a massive upset. What I think would be maybe even a bigger upset than JJ McCarthy beating Kyler Murray to be the starting quarterback in Minnesota is if Carson Beck beat Jacoby Brissett out to be the starting quarterback in Arizona. Jacoby Brissett literally held out because he was like, I'm your only option at quarterback. I know I'm not Drake May and I'm not Justin Herbert or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or Pat Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. I know I'm not that quality of player, but what are your other options behind me? You have to pay me. Pay me like a starter. I am your starter. It was a gangster holdout, by the way. I loved it. I was like, get your money, Jacoby. What a dog. Well, here was the last report from Cardinals training camp. Jacoby Brissett missed 7 deep balls, either overthrown to his wide receivers or thrown wide to his wide receivers. 4 of them were intended for Marvin Harrison Jr. Carson Beck, however, looked really good in most recent practices, while Jacoby Brissett has struggled. There was also an article written on ESPN. I did not read it. I just saw the headline where there is a beat writer for Arizona who is arguing for Carson Beck to just be named the starter. We were having the conversation, and we'll get to this team in a second. How many games before Fernando Mendoza is the starting quarterback? And, Tom Pelissero, before he ended up, unfortunately, being let go of ESPN, I got to find out what he's doing. He's a great reporter. Tommy P said that he would be stunned if Fernando Mendoza was the starting quarterback for Kirk Cousins or for the Las Vegas Raiders over Kirk Cousins, which is surprising to me because I never viewed Fernando Mendoza as a quarterback who needed to like sit for a year and take his time. Like the guy threw over 1,000 passes in college. He started in 36 games. He threw for 8,000 total yards and 71 touchdowns and 22 interceptions. The last season going undefeated at the highest level of football, beating the likes of Ohio State, Oregon, Alabama, Miami, Penn State, just to name a few, in terms of what you would consider some top competition across the country. The guy played at such a high level and in a conference that is the best conference in college football. I never viewed Mendoza as he's got to be Drake May, and he's got to, we got to sit this guy as long as possible. Or, hey, we have to, this guy's Jordan Love and he's a project and we have to sit him for, 3 years or whatever before we think he's ready to go. Right. Like, I never viewed him as that type of quarterback because of the experience, and not only just his experience, but his success at that experience. And just the fact that the guy is, his mechanics are really good and his competitiveness is super high. And you're not going to quit. This guy ain't Johnny Manziel, where you're going to be like, oh, I wonder how much tape he's watching. No, Fernando Mendoza is going to do all of the necessary things to be a high level quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. Never viewed Mendoza like that. So we always have the conversation of like, how many games until Fernando is starting? And I think it's like 5 or 6, 4 is kind of the consensus. And then the next fun question is like, all right, how many games till Carson Beck gets a shot, just for people to realize he's not the guy for Arizona to say, all right, we're for sure drafting Arch, or we're for sure drafting Dante Moore or whomever. And now we're at the point where Jacoby Brissett is playing terrible. Carson Beck looked awesome in the preseason game. And not only just from a throwing perspective, but a commanding of the offense perspective. And now he could end up being maybe even the starter for the Cardinals, which would be completely unexpected. John, with no H, calls in, our favorite listener, goes, Brissett overthrew 7 deep balls? Who says Dylan can't make it to the NFL? John will never stop taking shots at Dylan Rhule. Let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. A fight broke out between Mason Crosby and Kirk Cousins. Did you see this on Twitter? How everybody was like, you don't mess with Kirk Cousins?
Yeah,
like he's like the most non-messable quarterback in the NFL. I find that absolutely fascinating that in that fight, everyone, I think it might have been Will Compton who said, as someone who knows both of these guys really well, Kirk would beat the absolute crap out of Max Crosby, which is like not what you would think. If
I don't believe it.
D end and a quarterback faced off in a brawl, I think 9 times out of 10 we would say, yeah, I'm taking the D end. I ain't taking the quarterback, I'm taking the D end. Who are you taking? Myles Garrett versus Matthew Stafford. I'm taking Myles Garrett. By the way, I'm seeing a lot of clips of him. He looks so good in a Rams uniform. And I think we are getting to the point where, so Aaron Donald might come back and people are like, oh, he hasn't played in a couple years and this and that, and will be limited snaps. And I get it. I'm not going to flip out and be like, oh, the Rams are for sure going to win the Super Bowl because Aaron Donald might be coming back. But like his last season, he was like the best defensive player in the league. Like analytically, he was at the top and a ton of metrics. Like even if, a couple years removed from playing in the NFL, if that guy can give you some third down snaps from some rush snaps, can play 45% of the snaps, I think that adds a very important piece of depth that the Rams need, because the Rams have bought in to a lot of win now players. But when you're trading your first round picks and trading your middle round picks and all that type of stuff, even though that their middle round evaluation of players has been phenomenal, I think Blake Corum finally will break out for them this year. Like they need a guy like that in Aaron Donald, take some snaps away from that D line. But let's talk back to the Vegas Raiders. So Crosby and Cousins got into a fight, and it allowed, so they both got suspended for a practice for conduct unbecoming of the team. So they did not practice at Raiders camp, which meant Fernando Mendoza took first team snaps for the very first time as a Las Vegas Raider. A mix of good and a mix of bad, but reportedly has a really good command of the offense. And maybe, this is exactly kind of what the Raiders needed as to easing him in to taking first team snaps. But what does that tell you? If that's his first time taking first team snaps, Kirk Cousins is going to be the starter for the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm leaning towards my bad vibes team of the season being the Baltimore Ravens. Here's a report that came out of Ravens camp. The Ravens offensive line had 8 false starts in their latest 2-hour practice. 2 offsides were called in the red zone for the Baltimore Ravens. So that offensive line, which lost a very key piece in Tyler Linderbaum, not having a good camp so far, and an offensive line that needs to protect Lamar Jackson, because we have talked about this on the show. Tread on the tires are getting a little bit thin with Lamar, who has run the ball, I think, what's like over 780 times in his career up to this point. He already is the leading rusher for quarterbacks in NFL history, which is crazy. Lamar Jackson, Hall of Famer, right?
Definitely. He's at the moment. I feel he has to be.
We will talk about future Hall of Famers, one of them being a Raven, coming up next year on Middays with Matt on the 1620 Zone Radio Network.
Josh Hodson's boyhood hero was Hank Aaron. Matt McMasters was the guy from the Dos Equis commercial. Now it's starting to all make sense. Middays with Matt on 1620 The Zone.
Alrighty, big week for training camp for Nebraska football. Pads are on, baby.
Heck yeah.
So, because you have to have a certain amount of practices without pads on. So now they've reached that limit where, okay, now they can put the pads on. So Husker Online on 3, want to credit them with the information. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in full pads. Thursday, they'll be off. And then 2 more practices on Friday and Saturday. Saturday, it's expected that they'll have their first live scrimmage where, Matt Rhule was very briefly asked about some battles that were going on in camp and whatnot. And he mentioned himself that they have plenty of position battles happening. None of the information of who's winning what battles and what battles are going on were revealed. And in part, they haven't been in pads yet. I don't think you can make any of those decisions. So we'll see. I mean, obviously, for me, and I've stated this a lot, look, some people are going to pay a whole lot of attention and read a lot about, and media members will write a lot about the running back room. I'm not necessarily as invested in the RB room battle just because I think you're going to see all 4 of those guys at some point in the year get a touch and get an opportunity to impact the game. Now, what order will that be in will be interesting. And, hey, who might end up getting the bulk of the snaps? Sure. But at the same time, I think that with this running back room and how kind of close everything is in terms of their talent and also the varying of skills, right, across those guys in terms of, Rhule's got more speed than some of these other dudes, but some of these guys have been in the system longer than Rhule has, right? Tyke Hayes looks like a guy who could be a great short yardage back, but Isaiah Mosey is kind of that's your scat back. That's your wide receiver back, right? And then you got Mackay, who's got some really great speed and can kind of do all of that stuff. And so it's like you have kind of bits and pieces. I love if you could just combine all of the running backs into one running back and actually be an absolute stud. But I'm not necessarily so like hyper focused in on that as much as I am about the quarterback 2 battle. Where at this point, according to some intel that, nothing has really been decided yet in terms of that. So we will see, and we'll keep, an eye on that. Also keep eye on Eric Ingwerson, the tight end for Nebraska. It's a name that heard a little bit of over the last couple of days, last couple of weeks, last couple of months, honestly. And it's a guy that Dana has brought up in the past too, even dating back to last season. Rhule or Satterfield brought his game up as well. Can maybe expect him to have a little bit of a bigger role maybe than anticipated. But we will see as training camp and practice rolls along. We will give you all those updates. We also have a college football playoff meeting update to give later in the show. Ross Dellinger along with Heather Dinich doing a great job talking about the meetings going on with the college football playoff and the potential expansion of the college football playoff from 12 teams to 16, to 20, to 24. It seems like everything at this point is on the table and nothing has really been established. Same thing with kind of the Save College Sports Act, is that it was official that we're not going to get a vote on that until after the September recess. So we're going to have to put a hold on the Save College Sports Act, which a lot of work was done to try and get an August vote done and, get it before they took a recess, because we are in an election year and things can get kind of complicated with getting everybody you need to DC to vote on these things. But at the same time, this is kind of, you got one shot at this thing. Like if this thing passes, it's really hard to adjust it. And so they got to make sure things are right. And they're adding in some provisions that could make the first 180 days of this thing being established crazy. We'll talk about that probably later in the week. Honestly, we can always, the Save College Sports Act is always a topic that we can just go back to at a later time and date. One topic that we can go back to at a later time and date is the NFL Hall of Fame, because we are coming off of all of these guys being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Luke Kuechly, an incredible career, 8 years, 7 Pro Bowls, one of the smartest linebackers that we've seen in the NFL in quite some time. Ended his career short, right? 8 years, but still had a massive impact for the Carolina Panthers. Drew Brees, one of the best quarterbacks at all time. Just talk about a guy. I mean, that's one thing too. I haven't told this to Michael, but you go back and look at the Saints. Outside, they had 3 years with Peyton and Breeze, where they were just in no man's land, where they just were 7-9 and not doing a whole lot. But outside of those 3 years, man, the Saints were so competitive for so long. And that's the team that I'm not necessarily shocked that they only won one Super Bowl. I am shocked, though, that they only ever went to one Super Bowl. Same thing with Rodgers and the Packers. Like the fact that Rodgers only ever went to one is kind of wild to me. Same thing with Drew Brees. I think it just goes to prove to you how incredible what Tom Brady and what then Patrick Mahomes have accomplished in their careers. And obviously Mahomes still ongoing. Saw a quote today from Mahomes saying that he has to remind himself he's coming back from a major injury. So it seems like everything is trending in the right direction for Mahomes to start in week 1 of the NFL season. But you have Kuechly, you had Breeze, Roger Craig, shout out to Nebraska Cornhuskers. An incredible speech, man, from Roger Craig, a pre-recorded one where he revealed at the end that he's been diagnosed with vascular dementia.
Yep.
And, you know, just such a first off, I think those Hall of Fame speeches are so hard because, you know, you don't want to say I'm great and I'm incredible. And like, you don't want to, you know, not be humble through, you know, your incredible accomplishments, but you also have to think and explain your journey and thank everyone who's along the way. And I thought Roger did such a good job at doing that. An emotional acceptance speech. And, you know, I took to it. It was really well done. And then I think he, you know, it's hard. And obviously our thoughts and prayers to Roger Craig and Roger Craig's family and friends as, you know, he goes through this diagnosis of having vascular dementia. And, you know, he says in his speech, you know, doctors believe that I got this diagnosis in part because of all the concussions that I suffered when I played football. And when you connect the line between me playing in the NFL and me having a severe illness in part because of my time in the National Football League, like the NFL historically doesn't love that, right? That's not something that, you know, the NFL isn't, you know, historically not super pleased with, you know, their sport and their league being associated with, you know, terrible diagnosis is happening to their players after they leave the NFL. And yet I thought Roger did such an incredible job of threading that needle perfectly between I love football, I love the 49ers, I love my time at Nebraska, I love this sport, and you know, my doctors believe that I got this terrible illness because of, you know, my concussions that I suffered while playing football. But then he threaded the needle perfectly in saying, hey, if you're a player out there right now, like, take care of yourself, man. Like, talk to doctors. Like, make sure you're aware of this. Like, this is my story, and I want my story to help other people's story. And I think that is just such an incredible encapsulation of who he is as a person, and just a very brave, impactful, and heart-wrenching thing to include in his Hall of Fame speech. So much kudos to him. So much kudos to all the people who helped put his speech together. And just, man, the Drew Brees speech as well. Saw a couple clips of that. I watched first 10 minutes of it. I mean, I was him talking about Sean Payton, man, really cool. And the connection, you could see they did a great job of zooming in on Sean Payton and cutting back and forth between the two when Brees was seeing the speech. And there's this cool moment where Brees is talking about how he saw himself as an extension of Sean Payton. And you can see Sean like lean in, you know, like get closer, like he's locked in. You can see kind of a tear come down his face. And I thought that was a really, really, really cool moment. So congratulations to everybody who was inducted in the Hall of Fame. Adam Vinatieri as well.
Yep.
One of the greatest place kickers that we've seen. Great shot at Bill Belichick.
Fantastic.
I mean, like you think he's recruiting the next Lawrence Taylor or getting ready for their opener. Now he's probably at, you know, his girlfriend's cheer competition, which I thought was great, and made a great joke about Pat McAfee holding his balls, his kicking balls, yes, the ones that he kicked his way into the Hall of Fame with. So congratulations to those men. Hey, so I was looking at the 2027 Hall of Fame class, guys who potentially could be voted into the Hall of Fame class. Pretty loaded. Notable first-time eligibility players: Adrian Peterson, Ben Roethlisberger, Richard Sherman, Rob Gronkowski, Cam Newton, Andrew Whitworth, and Antonio Brown. I think there are unique stories to be told through all these players. I think undoubtedly good as gold you're in is Gronkowski.
Yep.
One if not the greatest tight end of all time. I think that when you have that conversation, you have to include him. You have to include Tony Gonzalez. You might have to include Travis Kelce, despite the fact that I put Gronkowski over Kelce at this point, because the peak of Gronk was something to behold. 17 touchdowns, over 1,000 receiving yards, 4 Super Bowls, which you I wrote that down. I go, wow. Yeah, he did win 4, because he won the 3 in New England and the 1 in Tampa Bay. All absolutely gold jacketer. Talk about a Hall of Fame speech that's going to rock, by the way. That Hall of Fame speech is going to be absolutely insane. AP, obviously, and we'll talk about this with another guy, he had some off the field issues for sure in his career, but number 5 rusher of all time, 14,918 yards, MVP in 2012. I think he had, I forget how many 1,000-yard seasons he ended up having. It might have been 7 or 8, but 7 or 8 consecutive, something crazy like that. But still, one of the greatest running backs ever in NFL history. Played for a lot of teams, guy, by the way, Adrian Peterson. Because, so he played, I think, over a decade, maybe near a decade for the Vikings. But then played for the Saints, played for the Cardinals, had a stint with the Seattle Seahawks. He was on Tennessee for a second. And then he did have, I think it's Detroit. He played with Detroit for a whole year. I think Reggie Bush also played for Detroit for a whole year. And those were like 2 names. Are like, oh my God, they're still playing. And then let me look it up. And he played for Washington too.
Yep.
Played 31 games for Washington.
Yeah,
he ran for 1,000 yards with the Commanders.
Yep, 2018.
Wow.
So he had 8 total seasons where he rushed for over 1,000.
I did not know
yards.
that. 10 years with or at least I forgot that he played a whole 2 years with Washington. But 10 years with Minnesota Vikings. He didn't make a Pro Bowl for any team other than the Vikings. And then obviously his legendary 2012 season where he won the NFL MVP and nearly set the record for a single season rushing yards in a year. His next best season was back in 2008 where he ran for 1,800 yards and 10 touchdowns and averaged 110 yards per game. Remember that there was a lot of drama with him in New Orleans when right after he was in Minnesota, he went to New Orleans and he wasn't getting played. And I think he got into a spat, if I'm not mistaken, with Sean Payton that season. And then eventually he was sent off. He went and finished the year with Arizona and then 2 years at Washington, the 1 year in Detroit. And then, I played that 3 games for Tennessee. And I forget. I don't know why I remember. I have such a vivid memory and vision of him on the Seattle team. He only played 1 game for Seattle, but he's in.
Yes.
Gronk is in. Sherman is in. And I will not take any slander about Richard Sherman. He was the best, one of 2 of the best players on a legendary defense from 2013, 14, 15. Won 1 Super Bowl, should have won 2 Super Bowls. He is a Hall of Famer. He is an incredible corner. And I will mention what gets and probably solidified him being a Hall of Famer was back in 2019. He was a key piece and a Pro Bowler for that San Francisco 49ers team that went to the Super Bowl. Lost, but he was a key piece in the team that went to the Super Bowl. So very underrated part of his career. I think he's in. Antonio Brown had a Hall of Fame career. He did, okay? His stretch of his prime is one of the greatest stretches in NFL history. Let me read this to you. From 2013 to 2018, this is Antonio Brown's receiving yards. 1,499, 1,698, 1,834, 1,284, 1,533, 1,297. In that 6-season stretch, he averaged nearly 1,600 receiving yards a season, along with having 8 touchdowns in 13, 13 touchdowns in 14, 10 touchdowns in 15, 12 touchdowns in 16, 9 touchdowns in 17, and finally 15 touchdowns in 2018. That is a Hall of Fame career. 12,291 yards, a total of 928 receptions, played a total of 146 games in his career. I'll tell you exactly why he's not going to get into the Hall of Fame, because it just has been such a clown show. And not only just off the field with all of his antics and live streaming and stupid crap that he's done, but also the leaving Tampa Bay, ugly breakup with New England, like nothing after he left Pittsburgh, nothing went right. And it was all his fault. It was all completely self-destructive from that point forward. And I just don't think that people are going to want to give him a microphone on that stage. You know,
no,
they're not going to want to give him that opportunity to do that. So he has a Hall of Fame career. I mean, maybe there's a world where he gets his act together and proves that, you know, he can be on, but right now, no. Roethlisberger will be interesting from a on the field standpoint, undoubtedly 2-time Super Bowl champion, 9th in passing yards of an all time, or sorry, 6th in passing yards of all time, 9th in touchdowns all time. It's just, you know, his off the field history. And that is something that the Pro Football Hall of Fame takes into account. Is that something that holds him back from being a first ballot Hall of Famer? If I had to guess, I'd probably say yes. Honestly, I think it might end up, stopping him from being a first ballot guy. He will be in the Hall of Fame one day, but that's just kind of how it is. So, and we'll leave it at that. But yeah, I mean, this is a loaded 27 Hall of Fame class. All right. Let's talk something other than football. Coming up next here on 1620 The Zone.
He's from the third largest village in the world, Skokie, Illinois. Middays with Matt on 1620, The Zone.
Can I read you a tweet from NBA Central? From my new favorite player, Norman Powell of the Chicago Bulls. Norman said about the Bulls, quote, "We have the potential to be really good, but we also have the potential to be really bad." Very comforting things to hear from your top of the line signing in the offseason. Yeah, we could be good. We could be terrible too. Could be absolutely awful.
Good job, Norman.
I was scrolling more through Twitter and I found that Emmett Johnson has had his welcome back to the or welcome to the NFL moment. Matt Foster, by the way, formerly of KETV, which is no surprise because, you know, Matt covered Huskers, knows the Huskers very well. He's currently with KSHB 41 of Kansas City. Posted a video of Emmett Johnson's retweeted at Matt McNeedy if you want to look at it. I retweeted Matt Foster's video, and it's a, you know, really good throw for Patrick Mahomes. EJ turns upfield. He looks really good. He looks fast in the picture. It's a really good catch. It's a good route that he ran as well. And then he gets laid out. He gets absolutely pummeled into the ground. I don't know the player who had the Xavier Wonkba hit him and then kind of walked off. He's like, "All right, hey, what's up, Rook? Have fun with that." And so better to have those moments probably in training camp than to have them during the regular season. Going to be interesting to see where I heard Emmett. I was listening to a fantasy football podcast and they actually brought up Emmett Johnson. Not as somebody to draft. They brought up they brought up EJ as, could EJ take away carries from Kenneth Walker? Which they emphatically said no. But it will be interesting to see what Emmett does in his first year at Kansas City. And, you know, obviously he's got to improve some things just in terms of the stuff that isn't catching the ball and running the ball. You got to get used to the protection. You got to get used to the offense. You know, he's going to have to be a contributor on special teams. But I think EJ and his versatility has the ability to be a very effective running back in the NFL. So,
I mean, if Kenneth keeps tackling DBs, you know, Emmett might get a chance. I
We-
assume you saw that video.
No, I didn't see that
You
video.
didn't? Yeah,
No.
there was a little bit of fight on Saturday. At
Oh, hell
training
yeah.
Camp.
Good for EJ.
Yeah, no, not for EJ. Yeah,
Oh.
Kenneth Walker.
Oh, Kenneth Walker
Yeah.
fought somebody?
Looks like
Oh,
a DB kind of like
I didn't
hit
see
him
that.
at the shoulder a little bit. He didn't seem to like it.
Yeah.
He threw the football at him and then just went full. It was a good fundamental tackle.
NFL
5K9,
training camp
but-
fights are very fun.
but it is
I very
funny.
much enjoying them. From Mr. Nick on Twitter, he goes, at Matt McMedia, did you just sneak a zebra into your irrational fear? Everyone knows I love the zebras. This is something that everybody knows. Okay. Larry and Tom over at the Henry Dorley Zoo. Yes, I've named them. They're right next to the Lions exhibit. It's just two zebras. They're just running around. And it's just, I think they live the greatest life, really, because it's just, they eat great food and they just run all day. No, I'm not afraid of zebras in general. I will say, though, that like there is no limit to what exotic zoo animal I could see on the street and it could freak me out. Like, even if it's like a very non-harmful cat of some sort, you know, or if I saw a penguin, let's say I saw an emperor penguin just walking on the streets of Omaha, I know the penguin ain't going to hurt me. I'd actually be concerned about the penguin and their ability to stay healthy. But it's one of those things where it's like, that would freak me out. Henceforth, an irrational fear. So we will, we'll stop talking about my irrational fears and we'll talk about some other college sport things coming up next year on Middays with Matt.
Family Man Josh Hodson, Family Man Matt Mc... You're kidding me, right? They want me to read this? Okay. Family Man Josh Hodson, Family Man Matt I'm sorry, there's just no way I'm going to get through this. You're listening to Middays with Matt on 1620 The Zone.
Still no update from the College Football Playoff Committee's meeting that they will have today. Going to be discussing potential expansion for the College Football Playoff. Everything is on the table. ESPN would prefer them not to go above 16 because if they were to go above 16, that means that other networks such as Fox or NBC of the likes would be able to get some packages to go ahead and broadcast these College Football Playoff games. It's one of the better investments that ESPN has made over the last couple of years, and definitely a mistake that Fox made in terms of not really seriously bidding to broadcast these College Football Playoff games, which is why a lot of this College Football Playoff expansion from the Big Ten being a big point of emphasis isn't necessarily fully about, oh, we want more teams in the Big Ten, which it is. Like, that is a factor. The Big Ten wants more Big Ten football teams because they stand to benefit from reputation and financially from it as well. But also, Fox and the Big Ten have a very big partnership in terms of their TV contract, and it only stands to benefit Fox and in tow the Big Ten if Fox is able to make a lot of money broadcasting these College Football Playoff games. At this point, it seemed like it was either 16 or 24 when it came to expansion. Now, apparently, there's 20 could potentially be on the table, which would be really interesting. I think the format, if we have to expand, which I do not support, if we had to expand, I would go to 16. And I actually do like the idea of having 13 play 16 and 4. Like, they would do kind of like a play-in for the final couple of spots. And it wouldn't just be like one versus, like, there's like a play-in idea that would happen, which I'm kind of cool with that because the games would be more competitive in that way. And then you kind of, you give the other teams an advantage in terms of rest because of what they played throughout the season. So if they were to do 16, but they decided, hey, we're not going to do 1 through 16 and 2 versus 15, they were going to do it another way, that would interest me because those games would inherently be more competitive. But it'll be interesting to see what they come away with during this meeting. We'll be following Ross Dellinger and Heather Dinich, who are two very good sources on everything that has kind of been going down. I'm really just ready for all of this non-football talk just to stop and we can get all these things passed and I don't have to read legislation anymore. This is what Dellinger talked about, by the way, what I was explaining. ESPN, the rights holder of the playoff, is socializing with CFP leaders a 16-team format with four play-in games for the final 4 spots into the field, seeds 13 through 16. So that's one of those where, so I got that wrong a little bit. They would have a play-ins to see who's 13 through 16. So it would involve the 13 team, but the 17 team and the 18 team, the 19 team. The Big Ten is not in support of this format. And part of the reason why ESPN would want to do it this way is so Fox and CBS and NBC don't have the opportunity to bid on these games. We will see. Once again, too much about college athletics is us talking about not the actual sports. The Bruce Feldman Freaks list came out today. Ooh. This is a crown jewel of the college football season where Bruce Feldman releases this list, and it's not ranking the 100 best players, right? It wouldn't rank the 100 best players, but instead it would rank the freakiest athletes who are the best athletes, right, across college football. And so this is not these are the 100 best players. These are just the 100 freaks, according to Bruce Feldman, who does a very good job of writing a fairly detailed bio of each player on the freaks list. The University of Nebraska got no players on this list. No players from Nebraska are a freak. However, there are plenty of Nebraska ties to this list. Kate, you know what? So I'm just going to go with this because that's what's the answer. Cade Pieper of Norfolk made it. Donovan Jackson, who played at Burke, he made it for Oregon. Jackson Cantwell, who has, his family from Crete, Nebraska, everything like that. He plays for Miami. He made it. Trace Thieden played for Millard West offensive tackle for North Dakota, who will play the Huskers this season. He made the list. And then here's a really good one. North Dakota State's quarterback, Chase Mason, played baseball at Nebraska in his first semester of college. And then he transferred to NDSU to be their quarterback. He's actually 28th on the freak list, according to Bruce Feldman. Here are the lists. So Nebraska will play 12 players on this list. Oregon has 2 of them. Ohio State has 2 of them. Iowa has 3 of them. Washington has 2. Illinois has 1, which, by the way, Illinois' 1 is Caden Fegan, who's a tight end, who formerly was a running back, who then they put like 40 pounds on him, and now he's just this freak tight end athlete. Michigan State's got 0. Like I said, transition year for the Spartans. Maryland has 0, which was sort of surprising.
Yeah.
But Rutgers has 2. They have 2 players on the freak list. The first one, obviously, is KJ Duff, who's like 6'5", just an absolute stud of an athlete. Had a really good season for Rutgers last year. The other player is Kobe Asamoah, who they got from Ohio State, and he's started 25 games for them at right guard in the past 2 seasons. He's 6'2", 310 pounds, but here's the thing: he has a 6'10" wingspan with 34-inch arms and 11-inch hands. He squatted 605 pounds and performed pull-ups at 305 pounds with an additional 105 pounds attached to him whilst doing pull-ups. That's a freak. KJ Duff, for those who don't know, he had 1,000 yards last season. He led the country with 22 contested catches, according to PFF. That's your PFF stat of the day. He also ran a 4.16 shuttle with a 10.3 broad jump. Feldman's got a great quote from his from one of KJ Duff's teammates, Kamar Archie, who said, "We call him Mini Ray Lewis, but I don't think Ray Lewis ever caught 60 passes for 1,000 yards in his career." Duff is 6'6", 225 pounds, which apparently Jeremiah Charles is having a really good training camp for Nebraska up to this point. Gonna need more of that. So a couple of guys across for no Nebraska Cornhusker on this list, but guys who were in-state players at some point or have some previous connection to Nebraska. Mike in our chat, Bet-Free Mike goes, wouldn't the 16-team college football playoff, wouldn't it be 6 versus 19, 10 versus 15, 4 games to get 16 to 12, then 12 to 8? That's what I thought. It essentially is though you're just doing playoff games to get 13 to 16, and then I think you would go 1 through 16, 2 through 15. All of this stuff. Once again, I'm done talking about all of the semantics that go into college football, and I would just prefer to talk about the games and have the games be played and not worried about what's going on in Capitol Hill. Real quick, I don't know if anybody will, but I mean, I don't think it's a referendum on the program that they don't have a quote unquote freak on this list or on this team. Ohio State only has 2. Oregon only has 2. Nebraska has the same amount of freaks on this list as Indiana. This is a fun little thing that Feldman does, and it is sort of interesting that he's able to grab all of these numbers and, put hey, he squats this and he box jumps that and he broad jumps this. And I don't think it's a referendum in the slightest that they don't have somebody who made this list. Once again, the national champions of last year don't have anybody on this list. This is Bruce Feldman having fun. Some people might take it that way. I wouldn't take it that way. Now, if you want to say it's a referendum that Cade Piper and some of these guys who were in the state and, some of which were in Nebraska's backyard in terms of very talented players who ended up going elsewhere, you want to make that play on it, sure. I think that some of these guys, they were in a different era too, in terms of when they were recruited. Matt Rhule didn't necessarily have a shot at all these guys to potentially go and play football in Nebraska. So I'm just, I don't. I think this is a fun little thing, but I don't think it's anything to write home about. Kenneth goes talking about the college football playoff. They're going to galaxy brain it and make it somehow even worse than it is. Well, yeah, because I mean, once again, it's just all about money and TV networks and TV deals and networks protecting themselves only for the good of themselves and only for cash could go in their pocket and not necessarily the good of the game, which the Save College Sports Act, while it needed a lot of work and it still does need some work, and we'll talk about it at some point in terms of, you know, what the effects might be in terms of conference movement with some of the, you know, new rules that they put in terms of the limiting of movement for teams, you know, when the Save College Sports Act comes through. In particular, if you're going from power conference to power conference, you have to spend 5 years as an independent. But now there is there's a fine writing in the first 180 days of the Save College Sports Act going through that you can move without having that penalty, and that could cause absolute chaos. And so, like, there's still a lot of things that they have to figure out and work through. But I'm once again, just, I will keep reiterating this, like, I'm sick and tired of all the discourse that isn't the actual sport. And, you know, we're going to continue to have some of that discourse with Robin Washut coming up next, who we're going to talk about certain guys who are going to get fifth years who didn't know that they had more eligibility to use in college basketball this time last year. But I will say that maybe the one shining light of the Save, well, I mean, there's plenty of shining light with the Save College Sports Act. Like, some of it a lot of it would bring the chaos down quite a bit in college sports, even though I don't think chaos will ever fully not be in college sports. Part of the beauty of college sports is that chaos is involved more so than professional sports, where things are pretty shut tight in comparison. But the one a shining light of it all is there are actually people who are willing to come together and team up to make sure that this sport and college athletics as a whole is actually, like, manageable and can continue to survive and maybe even one day thrive, unlike they are now, where just every rule feels like it's getting changed at every single moment. Jimmy goes, they don't actually know or understand the industry they're in charge in. Well, that's the thing, Jimmy. It's like, I've had this conversation when it comes to Nebraska athletics, in particular football. Like, how many times can you go to the well of goodwill when it comes to Nebraska football fans until it's gone, until people are like, I'm sick and tired of this crap, right? And I think that well is not dry in the slightest. And I still think that there is still plenty of goodwill between Nebraska football fans and the Nebraska athletic department. I believe that. But I think there's also plenty of goodwill still between college football and college football fans, where we're not going to, you know, a lot of the decisions they make, while they are ridiculous and a lot of people don't like them, still, Matt Rhule brought this up in Big Ten Media Days, we're watching the sport more than we ever have before. We're tuning into the sport more than we ever have in the past. We're still, you know, drooling at the mouth to have football come back, despite all of the hoopla that's gone on around it. I just wonder, and I worry, you know, what is the straw that breaks the camel's back? If there is one, if there even exists a straw that could break the camel's back, and maybe your argument would have been Brendan Sorsby being allowed to play. It would have gotten very, very close to being that straw. But I'll say this, college sports has gotten way too close over the last couple of years to answering what that question actually is. Jimmy goes, I was referring to CEOs and people who run things around the world, but he ended up agreeing that the NCAA definitely. That's the one thing too about the Save College Sports Act. It's so funny to me that, like, the people who want this thing to get through and who want the power to run college sports are literally the people who ruined it too. Like, the College Sports Act is going to put power back in the hands of people who frankly have proven they shouldn't have that power to begin with, which I think is one of the more overlooked parts of that bill. Once again, we'll get there when we get there. We got to take baby steps here. I can't expect too much from the NCAA. Real quick before we hit a break and get to Robin, from Big Husker, Not sure if anyone else feels this way, but all this insanity in college football has turned my attention to the NFL by tenfold over the last 4-ish years. I'll say this, like, we talk about college football doing really well. The NFL is killing it, right? The NFL hasn't done better. And you want to know why? You know how I know? The salary cap in the NFL around 2020 was $190 million. And people ask, wow, running backs are getting paid a lot of money. Running backs are getting paid a ton of money now. Are we finally valuing the running backs, from a market perspective in the NFL? Well, no, not really. Because running backs still aren't getting the years and the guaranteed money and even the salary that wide receivers are getting. Zay Flowers is making $35 million a year next season for the Baltimore Ravens. He had 4 touchdowns last year. Jonathan Taylor is going to make $13 million less than that guy. Who would you rather have on your team? Jonathan Taylor or Zay Flowers? The unequivocal answer is Jonathan Taylor. The reason why, though, running backs are getting paid so much is that the salary cap has increased about $110 million in the last 5 years of the NFL. Teams can now spend $301 million on their rosters in the NFL. You can spend $250 million to pay 53 men to play a child's game in front of 70, 80,000 people on a weekly basis. All right. The NFL is doing incredible right now. And maybe to Big Husker's point, it might have to do with the fact that the product is great. The quarterbacks are great. They understand their TV product, but secondarily, to Big Husker's point, have people just been so soured by the craziness that have happened within the NFL, within college football, that they said, you know what? If college football is going to be the NFL 2.0, I might as well just watch the better product. Might as well just watch it. Something to think about. A lot of great comments coming in. We'll get to them at some point in the show. But coming up next, let's talk to Robin Washington, Husker Online and On 3 here on Middays with Matt.
Now, back to Middays with Matt on 1620 The Zone.
You know, the Bruce Feldman freaks list came out today, and the University of Nebraska didn't have any players on it, and everybody's freaking out. They're like, you have to ask your next guest, Robin Washit of Husker Online and On 3. Robin, how big of a deal is it that Nebraska had 0 people on the freak list from Bruce Feldman?
I guess you'd like to have guys on that list.
Sure.
But I don't know if it's an end-all be-all by any stretch.
No.
It's a purely objective list, so I'd only put so much stock into it.
No, not at all. And by the way, Nebraska had the same amount of players on that list as Indiana did. So I don't know if that list necessarily equates to winning, but you definitely did have some in-state guys who played here at high school in Nebraska who ended up being on that list. But regardless, it's all a fun little joke. How are you? How's everything going on? How is balancing the camp being back, football training camp being back, fall camp in swing? They're fully padded practice today. First time they'll be in full pads, while also juggling the Jamarcus Lawrence situation and whether or not J-Law will be back with Nebraska basketball. How has that been for you personally?
Oh, good. They're still easing back into fall camp. Had just a couple days access last week, a few more this week, and Tuesday I think we actually get to see the team for a little bit for the first time since the spring game. So looking forward to that, to actually get some eyeballs on some of these guys and just see what the picture looks like. Probably won't learn a whole lot from 20 minutes of individuals and stretching, but I just like to be able to see Nebraska's players playing football on a football field, because there's a lot of guys that we really haven't seen much. Like, you read their names on paper, you see them at prep podiums, talking, after practices, but it's just been few and far between to actually get eyeballs on these guys when it comes to them playing a semblance of real football.
When you go ahead and you kind of look through this roster, Rhule kind of mentioned some of the battles going on. Is there a battle in particular or a player in particular you think, hey, it'd be interesting to see them win this battle, or there's a battle in particular you're really honed in on?
Oh, outside the real obvious ones. I mean, obviously running back is going to be right up there. The other corner spot is going to be way up there. And just kind of see what the pecking order on the defensive line looks like. I think we have a pretty good idea of who the main, pieces of that mix are going to be. But, whereas some guys a little bit further down the line stack up, where's a Tyson Terry when all's said and done?
Yeah.
Where's a Berryman when all's said and done? So, I think that there's still some things to be determined up front on the D line. And, there's other spots here and there, but the big ones are the big ones that everybody's going to be watching, everybody's going to be talking about, just because, there's a lot of unknowns at a couple pretty key positions at this point in camp. And maybe internally they're a little bit more clear, but as far as we know, they're still wide open for the taking. So it'd be interesting to just see, if some of those, which one of those running backs is going to emerge, and, which one of those cornerbacks is going to emerge, and what the depth chart ultimately looks like on the defensive line.
So you've obviously been covering football now the entire time that Matt Rhule has been a head coach. And on Saturday, 25 minutes, it seemed like kind of one of the more mundane and maybe less exciting press conferences we've seen from Rhule at his time at Nebraska. Compare and contrast how those pressers and how he used to be in year one compared to how he is now and what he reveals now in year 4.
Probably the biggest takeaway is just kind of what the whole off-season theme has been, where it's just pre-buttoned up. There was a couple questions just asking him to highlight certain players, or if there's been any standouts, and maybe in his first couple of years he would have picked a guy. And we all know what happens when he does that. You can say some young guys looking good, then all of a sudden there's 13 feature stories and 17 radio segments and podcasts all about how this player's the next Heisman Trophy front runner. So I think he's kind of learned his lesson a little bit, that whatever you say will either be used against you or be taken to the next level. Just because that's the way this market is. So again, it's nothing new from how he's operated this whole offseason, but you definitely notice a more toned down approach to answering some of those player specific questions where, he'll talk about a group, and, he'll compliment a player when it's due, but some of the unnecessary or unprompted praise has really been scaled back compared to maybe his first couple of years here, which I think is a good thing because, you don't need narratives to go spin in wild directions any more than they already do.
Sure. Absolutely. And let's talk about this battle in particular, because I asked you to, you talked about the D line and the running back room, but I find one battle to be incredibly interesting to me, and that is the quarterback 2 battle. Because in a perfect world, Robin, you don't play TJ Lateef this year. You don't play Danny Kalen this year. You get all the games and good performance out of Anthony Calandria. But as we've seen over the last about 10 years, it's only been Dylan who started all 12 games in one season until last year. He got hurt and obviously didn't play the last couple games of the year. What do you think of, that battle between Lateef and Kalen? And is there any kind of knowing right now of where things currently stand?
No, not really. I guess if you want to try to read tea leaves,
Sure.
They brought Lateef up of that first player access day camp, and there was that going on. Maybe it's just a matter of schedule circumstance. Who knows? But it sounds like that competition is still ongoing. I would probably just give Lateef a bit of the leg up because he just started 3 games in this offense and is coming off a little bit more recent experience. But Kalen's played in the offense too, and so he's not exactly starting from scratch either. So I agree with you that is an important position battle that kind of gets lost in the shuffle of other starters. But when's the last season Nebraska didn't have to play its backup quarterback?
Yeah,
it's been a long time. I think going back to like Tommy Armstrong. So it's a extremely important position. And the good news is Nebraska's got guys that have started multiple games at the FBS level that you feel probably a little bit better about either one of those guys taking the reins if necessary compared to somebody that is just getting his feet wet at this level, which has happened before in the past.
Obviously we've had some really good in-skate stories in terms of guys that you didn't maybe necessarily expect to have bigger roles in their career coming from high schools here in Omaha and high schools in Lincoln or just high schools across the state and ended up being big contributors, right? And like John Bullock is a guy that I think of in terms of, in-skate guy, DB, moves to linebacker, then ends up, making Tampa Bay's roster last year. But, you wrote a feature on a guy that is getting some really high praise right now in Donovan Jones. And I thought number 37 last year, he was very impressive in his first big dose of play just because of how physical he was. And now Jameer Khan, is his teammate is calling him, he's a first round type guy. And, Rhule kind of mentioned he's running a 4.3 40 and he already is 6'1", 200 pounds. Like, how big of a deal do you think if for this program, it would be if the first round pick for them in basically 15 years was an in-state product they developed?
Yeah, to be able to get somebody local, that's just kind of a cherry on top to all of it. I think Nebraska would take a first-round pick wherever they're from.
Sure. Good point.
They've been in that situation, but I think going back to your point, obviously, yeah, if you can, especially just what the ripple effect that would mean for in-state recruiting, where if you take a kid that develops, start to finish within your program, and you're able to turn them into a draft pick, let alone a first round pick, that would be substantial. So, we'll see if Donovan Jones does have that ability. That was some pretty lofty praise from his teammates, but I guess the good news is that by all accounts, Donovan is putting in the necessary work to get himself there every single day and has been extremely committed to his development, and then, also making sure everybody keeps up with him and setting the standard in that defensive backs room. So he's going to be an invaluable piece, especially if he's able to stick at that nickel spot, and somebody else is able to kind of hold down the fort at that, number 2 corner. Because they really like the picture of Donovan Jones in the slot, just with his size, athleticism, and, kind of being able to be that hybrid type that, can play run defense, will also drop back into coverage, and you don't have to sub him off the field. That's kind of the intent of that position. And, when you've got a guy that checks every box with size, speed, length, and football IQ, that sets you up for, a pretty successful season here. So, I think the table's set for Donovan Jones to, I think really have a big impact this coming season. And if he continues on his, current trajectory, I wouldn't say there's a cap on his potential, just with the way that he's been able to progress over basically since the Pinstripe Bowl.
Yeah, like you wrote in your article a couple hours ago, had 59 tackles last year with 1 interception. He was the only 5th freshman for Nebraska since 1972 to have 50 or more tackles in a season. Let's talk about another guy that he might be lining up with. A lot of Jeremiah Charles buzz. And, you saw the picture and, he looking the part and first guy off the bus. But to you, been covering this program obviously for a long time, but covering, since the beginning of the Matt Rhule era to now, like Charles was one of the first guys they brought in. And he was one of those guys that they brought in from Texas. And, they looked at him as more of an athlete than necessarily a football player. I know that a lot has been said about, player development and, the fact that, Matt Rhule has a lot of pelts on the wall in terms of the players that he developed, but a lot of those pelts come from Baylor and Temple. What would Jeremiah Charles represent if he were to be a high impact player as the second cornerback for Nebraska this season?
I mean, he'd be the latest example of Rhule's kind of hallmark of being able to, find players anywhere and everywhere and kind of see what their potential is, more so than what they've already proven. And, Jeremiah Charles just came in with really limited high school football experience, but Matt Rhule saw something in him with his athleticism and his frame and, his ability to become a high-level football player. And I think the most intriguing thing about Jeremiah Charles is I think one of the things that kept him off the field is he was just so small. He was just a smaller corner that, you go back to that game, I think it was Maryland. I can't remember. Rhule referenced it in his press conference.
The UCLA game.
UCLA, that's right.
24.
And, as soon as he came in, they just went right at him, and he had no answer. They physically could not match up with UCLA's wide receivers, and it was kind of about as exposed as you can be on a single drive. And I think that was kind of the end of his, real time as a primary cornerback. And so that seemed like maybe that was going to be the end of the road for him. But the whole thing about having the surgery or whatever that was, the procedure done in his stomach that was keeping him from putting on weight and, translating his nutrition into putting on muscle and whatnot. The fact that they, identified that too and fixed it. And now all of a sudden he's starting to bulk up to where, physically he's in a lot better position to hold his own. Maybe that's kind of the glass ceiling that he's been able to break through that can allow him to, continue to develop into that potential that Matt Rhule saw before anybody else. So it's going to be a real intriguing story. And if he's right in that conversation for that other corner spot, that, if it's him or whoever, can lock down that other spot, that there's a ripple effect there because it allows Donovan Jones to stay inside, allows, Jameer Khan to stay at safety. And so there's a lot of, I think, other positions that get answered if someone can step up and lock down that second corner spot. And right now it appears there's no reason it can't be Jeremiah Charles.
Intriguing indeed. By the way, Robin Washit, Husker Online and On3, big New York Giants fan. Can I read you something here? Wide receiver Malik Neighbors looked the best he has this summer during individual drills Friday. He continues to get better, making sharper cuts jumping and landing on the affected leg and running crisper routes as he rebounds from a knee injury. Also, Cam Scadaboo returned to practice after stretching out his leg the previous day. He has participated in all 10 practices with the Giants in West Virginia. I read you those words about your New York Football Giants. Robin Washut, does that fire you up, or are you still very hesitant and skeptical when it comes to the John Harbaugh-led New York Giants this season?
Well, certainly encouraging, because the only way we stand a chance is if those dudes are on the field. Last year, those guys were not on the field, and we were, the record was what we were. So, yes, I mean, if like Malik Neighbors is like, Giants have a chance, I think, to be like okay. But if Neighbors is healthy and plays a full season and is back to being, rookie year Malik Neighbors, then they can go from okay to pretty good. Just because when you have that game changer, it does a lot for everything else on your offense. So encouraging. We're still in not even to our first preseason game yet, so I'm holding out from diving headfirst into the Kool-Aid. But I'll take it. This is quality progress in some injury storylines that we needed a lot of quality progress.
Speaking of diving headfirst, hopefully Jackson Dart does not do that this season.
Let's hopefully he slides feet first out of bounds,
and
more often than not.
We'll slide feet first out of this interview with you, Robin Washut of Husker Online and On 3. You're the man. I appreciate you. Talk to you soon, my friend.
Yep. See you.
Robin Washut of Husker Online On 3. Not one basketball question to Robin, by the way. So back, baby. All right, take a break. Middays with Matt here on the 1612 Zone Radio Network.
Now back to Middays with Matt on 1620 The Zone.
The ABCA volleyball preseason rankings came out. Nebraska volleyball, number 1 in the country, sets up a number 1 versus number 2 match between Nebraska and the Texas Longhorns, which will happen in Vegas later in the year. It will be the 7th time in Nebraska volleyball history they will have a 1 versus 2 matchup. Creighton volleyball was the 13th ranked team in the ABCA preseason poll. Creighton obviously always has a very challenging non-conference schedule. They are set to take on 6 ranked opponents before Big East conference play. The Jays will play number 1 Nebraska, number 7 Louisville, number 8 Texas A&M, number 9 Purdue, number 14 Minnesota, and number 20 USC before conference play. Real quickly, before we get to what to watch with Jake Janicek, we want to remind you about 1620 The Zone's Oregon trip. We're sending one lucky Husker fan and a guest to see Nebraska battle the Ducks in Eugene. You can enter now at 1620thezone.com for your chance to win. Then keep listening to Happer and Schaefer for bonus chances this week to earn even more entries. The ultimate Husker road trip could be yours thanks to our great friends at Woodhouse Auto and Family. 2 tickets to Nebraska versus Oregon, 2 round-trip airfare, tickets from Omaha to Eugene, a 2-night hotel stay, and a $150 gift card for food, rides, or game day gear could be won by entering our Oregon trip contest at 1620thezone.com. What are we watching tonight, Jake Janicek?
So in the MLB, we got Red Sox at Blue Jays at 6:07 on MLB TV. Phillies Cardinals are at 6:45 on FS1. Brewers Padres are at 8:40 on ESPN Unlimited. And the Royals are in the nightcap in LA against the Dodgers at 9:10 p.m. on MLB TV. And in the WNBA, we got the Tempo versus the Dream at 7 on Peacock and Sky at Storm 9 p.m. on the USA Network.
Hit that music, Janny.
All right, folks, let's talk right now. I'm going to kill your bookmaker. I'm going to rip his throat out. I will blow this man out. I will step on his throat until the man chokes. Let me tell you how. Dog. Winners. Dog. Winners. Dog. Winners. Dog. Winners. Dog. Winners. I'm on a roll.
Dude, you got to love dogs, right?
I think it's too early for me to be giving out football futures as dogs of the day, so I won't do that. We'll stick to baseball, though, where I will go ahead and I'm going to bet on the San Diego Padres tonight to beat the Milwaukee Brewers, the best team in all of baseball, plus 108. Casey Mize on the mound for the Padres. He got a 3.4 ERA this year, along with 86 strikeouts in 90 innings pitched. Great, fun show, football show today here on a Monday. We'll try and add a little bit more flavor to the shows, but we had so much to go through. We're going to talk about floors, ceilings, and not like the ones in your kitchen in your house. I'm more so talking about how many wins Nebraska may or may not get this season. I had to talk about training camp, Matt Rhule, all the likes. We had a great show today. Jake Janicek and I will be with you this entire week as we creep closer to the beginning of Husker football season. Somebody who's going to be very excited to talk about that with me is Josh Peterson. Someone who won't be that excited to talk about that is John Bishop. They join me next on the Crossover USC up here on the 1620 Zone Radio Network.